There's the date, Friday the 13th of June, 2025. Welcome to a rainy Lake Wissota. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Nice to have you around here. Oh, I see look how I boxed myself in here on the sides. I gotta fix that. While I address that, let me tell you that coming up on the program today, we are going to be talking to Judge Chris Taylor, who is running for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We'll talk to Dr. Kristin Lyerly as well, who will be part of that segment. That's in our 8 o'clock hour. We'll recap yesterday's Joint Finance Committee meeting in the Legislature, where Republicans made official what we've known for several days now. They're not willing to meet Governor Evers halfway. They approved of the stuff that Evers agreed to, but came woefully short of the things that Governor Evers would like to see and that most people would like to see in the state budget. We'll talk to our week in review panel about efforts in California to end the armed insurrection by a sitting president against his own second largest city. And Mike Clemens will be along to talk about all kinds of sports, including love and marriage. Marriage for Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, separately, not together. Plus, a Brewers pitching phenom has mixed results in his major league debut. I mean, he had a no-hitter going, but had to leave the game early. So we'll recap all that and more coming up at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you in a bit. While I try to figure out how to get my camera working again. Let's see. Oh, I see. Let's try this button here. No, that's not what I want. Oh, somebody monkeyed with the colors again.
This is very Friday the 13th.
This is very Friday the 13th, and I don't have the correct color number handy. It's just going to take a minute here. We're just going to keep the mic open. We're just going to pull the curtain back on this whole thing. Because once again,
secret show.
Somebody touched my stuff.
Don't touch bad stuff, kids.
Don't touch my stuff. Let's find the color number. The color number is 3D628A. All right, let's try that. 3D628A. There we go. Oh, let's see. Is this camera angle right? No, still have that. I don't want that. I have to go find a setting. Let's see. Oh, layout. Here it is. Hey.
There it is.
Ta-da. Let's see. Tony, did you break the camera again? Apparently I did, but all's right with the world now, so I have 2 minutes to slurp as much coffee as humanly possible.
Oh, boy.
We'll be back.
It's going to be a jittery show, folks.
Go drink your water.
I will.
I'm drinking mine, too. It just says bean juice in it.
Bean juice. Oh, I don't like that.
Beanie.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, I'd like to say here's Pat Kreitlow, here's Pat Kreitlow, here's Parker Olson, but I have to add here's Pat Kreitlow, here's Parker Olson, and here's Friday the 13th because it's Friday, June 13th, and the gremlins are running amok on our computers here. I just realized somebody had changed the colors. Somebody had changed the camera setting on here, and now I realize somebody changed the font as well on here, the print. Now, again, on radio, that's no big deal. But for all the rest of us who are trying to get some work done here, things are just, they're just a little out of whack here. But, you know.
The wheels are off the bus.
Yeah,
it's Friday.
It's Friday the 13th. We're just going to embrace it, frankly.
Yeah.
You know what? I just might try different fonts every segment here for folks watching on social media. So if you see some calligraphy in there, if you see some hieroglyphics, you know, just roll with it. Maybe that's because, in part, I normally say it's a beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, across the Civic Media Radio Network. Tony putting up on YouTube the font name. I know, Tony. I'm not seeing it here. It's suddenly gone. It's suddenly gone. The font that I want to use.
I love that Tony has that.
Wait, Tony says, no, not Montserrat. Go with papyrus. Papyrus. Oh, God.
I'm a big fan of lobster, if you can find that font.
You know, again, I don't want to take anything away from our radio pleasure here. But
yeah,
we could change this to all kinds of nonsense if we wanted to. Anyway, that is just annoying here. Let me take that date out. Let's just take all. I can't do it. I can't take any of the bad print off the screen here. Let me just move right over into telling you what is going to be on the program today, shall we? Yes. In this hour, if you missed our conversation with Senate Democratic Leader Dianne Hasselbein yesterday, we're going to play back little parts of it about the state budget. The Joint Finance Committee met yesterday. That's the very powerful budget writing committee of the legislature. And Republicans basically proved what we've known all week. They were not willing to meet Governor Tony Evers halfway. They worked on the stuff that they could agree on, where Evers met them halfway on tax cuts, but they fell woefully short of what's needed in a state budget to adequately run the state. So we'll have some details on that coming up in just a bit. In our 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Judge Chris Taylor about her candidacy for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court next year, a race that might feature her going up against incumbent right-wing Justice Rebecca Bradley. We'll also be joined by Dr. Kristin Lyerly as both women talk about their ongoing work to protect women's health care rights. We will have our Week in Review panelists talking about the latest effort by the Trump regime to have a permanent military presence in major American cities, and a possible setback after a judge ruled the president did not properly take control of the National Guard away from California's governor. But then an appeals court put everything on pause. So we will review media coverage of the events as well. And Mike Clemens will have all kinds of sports talk for the weekend on and off the court, including love and marriage. That would be marriages for Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers separately, not together. Thank you. I'll be here till 9 o'clock anyway. And also a Brewers pitching phenom has his major league debut last night. And it went in the way that all things Brewers have seemed to go this year for starting pitchers. Mr. Mizorowski was having the time of his life. 23-year-old, major league debut. Jacob Mizorowski, 5 innings of no-hit ball. He was taking a no-hitter into the 6th inning, landed on his ankle funny a couple of pitches in, was also feeling cramping in his right leg, had to leave the game with a no-hitter going in the 6th inning. It apparently is not anything serious. We think, we hope, we pray. But for Jacob Mizorowski, it was an amazing start, and he got run support this time. as the Brewers beat the Cardinals 6-0 last night. They will do it again tonight at American Family Field. 7:10 the first pitch, so 6:35 the pregame on Civic Media stations all across Wisconsin. So again, you'll want to head over to the website civicmedia.us and learn more about where you can hear the Brewers, although I can tell you that it would also include the newest Brewers affiliate, WBZH, in Hayward. So tune in there. And then there's playoff hockey. If Parker has learned nothing, and Parker's learned a lot, it's that I love playoff hockey. It's a little weird in June, but it's still a lot of fun to watch because you get things like this where Edmonton was behind, I think it was 3-1. Was it 3-1 or 3-0 after the first period? And I thought, well, that's it. That's all done. Because again, I can't stay up late. Only to wake up this morning, find out Edmonton had come all the way back and tied it at 3, then went up 4-3. Then with 20 seconds left in regulation, Florida tied it at 4-4. The crowd goes wild in Florida. They go to overtime, and about 12 minutes into overtime, Edmonton scores and wins the game. Final score 5-4 in overtime. And so that series is now tied at 2 games apiece, the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 5 is set for Saturday night in Edmonton. There will be a Game 6 one way or the other next Tuesday in Florida. And if a deciding 7th game is needed, it will be a week from tonight, next Friday, in Edmonton. And in the NBA playoffs, they're back in action tonight. Game 4 in Indiana. Again, Indiana is up 2-1 on Oklahoma City, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to say nobody put money on it, but it was, shall we say, that wasn't the conventional wisdom that Indiana would have any kind of a lead in this series?
Surely somebody thought this would happen.
Well, I mean, yeah, the whole great state of Indiana, I'm sure. But,
great state of Indiana?
Well, they would say so.
Okay. Sure.
From what I've driven across, meh.
But, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, Mike Clemens will tell us much more about these stories and more. Packers minicamp coming, and there's also a Brewers pitcher who is requesting a trade because, of course, this year with the way the Brewers pitching ranks have gone.
He doesn't want to get injured. That's probably why.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Aaron Savali just doesn't want to get hurt because he sees there's like somebody turned a horseshoe upside down in the locker room or something. Yes, Tony, great state of Indiana. I know. Sorry. It's okay. Along the way, you can text us at 855-75-CIVIC, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. You can also use that comment section on your face page or on the YouTube and reach us that way. And if you'd like to catch this as a podcast, which might be helpful, there's times when you can use that little fast forward button and make this thing just keep going, kind of the way I'd like to do right now. Go to Spotify and subscribe to the show that way. We'd love to have you along. Brittany Merlot will be here in the next hour, but does tell us her state forecast today says showers and storms are just going to be the trend now, popping up at various times and dampening parts of the weekend. And that's really all she wrote. It's going to rain at times, and it's not like a defined front where we can tell you exactly when and where. It's not like a thunderstorm front that comes through and you really know when to expect it. Here, it's going to be off and on. Plenty of clouds today, she says in the forecast. Cool, occasional showers. A thunderstorm is possible here and there. Highs today only in the mid-50s up north, upper 70s south, and an east wind today at 10 to 20 miles an hour. And isn't there anything quite like rain pouring down and an east wind at 20 miles an hour whipping it up in your face? For tonight, light rain is likely, lows in the upper 40s up north, mid-50s south, and east wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. It's at this point, Parker, we pause for a moment of silence for those who said, Father's Day weekend, that's the weekend I want to go camping. Let's take Dad. Should we waterproof the tent? Nah. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
It'll be okay. We got this.
Dom, who's producer for John and Gordy's show, he actually is going camping this weekend.
No.
Yeah, he's going. I think that him and his girlfriend, I think he said, are going to Devil's Lake this weekend.
Sorry, Dom.
Yeah.
don't know what to tell you. Roger in Stevens Point puts on Facebook the earliest sunrise of the year, according to timeanddate.com, will be Sunday. In Wausau, it'll be rising at 5:11 a.m. in Eau Claire at 5:19 a.m. And I do always like that. It's not the longest day of the year because of the way the whole Earth works. But we get the earliest sunrise of the year a few days before the summer solstice, and this is as early as it gets. And when you compare it to the dead of winter when the sun doesn't come up till almost noon, this feels way better.
Uh-huh.
I am very happy about that. So Dom's going camping. What about you?
I am working Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Mallard's games.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Which I would normally say, oh, fun, and then I realized it might be kind of a rainy weekend, and so
I'm only worried about Sunday, I think.
Okay.
I think that's the only day I've got to worry about. And frankly, that is the worst day to have to worry about because I do have to work here on Monday. So hopefully we don't get rain like we did a lot last year and get delayed for like 2 hours and I end up getting home at 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Yes. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you. And
Mine too.
hope, and have the Mallards just score early and often so that if it has to be postponed,
what are you doing?
It'll be good. Gonna visit some friends this weekend. I've got which on the one hand, if I hadn't made this commitment, I'm sure I would pop in at the state Democratic convention and see what's going on with the election of a new chair and all the other talk. It's always good to see people there. But I did make this commitment to go see some friends that I haven't seen for about a year. So I'm going to go travel and visit them.
Nice.
And basically, we've done a lot of traveling. Like I said, we did the vacation and we did our grandson's graduation.
As far as I know, you only travel, Pat.
Yeah, I know. And so we said, this is it. This is it. And after this, people come to us because, you got the lake, you got the pontoon, you got the guest room and everything else.
Good
so
stuff.
we will pick up all those travels again in the fall, but the Kreitlow Bed and Breakfast will be open for business starting next week. In fact, it will be next week. We have 2 different groups that are coming next week to stay at our place. So I got to get the waffle irons out. I got to get the griddle ready because I am the breakfast maker whenever we have the bed and breakfast open. And we make up those Chippewa waffles and some bacon and all kinds of good stuff. Plus, I have my little espresso pot now. I don't need no big fancy machine. I got the little pot. I make it old school.
There you go.
That's how you wouldn't know. You haven't had espresso much.
No, I haven't.
You haven't had instant coffee, much less anything else that's up the ladder. But we'll work on it. We'll work
You'll
on
work on it. I'm fine.
I don't know. I think we're going to work on your palate, shall we say?
Well, working on the palate, sure.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we can try. Let's pause here, and then we'll get into what's in our daily newsletter and what's in the news today. First, I tell you, as always, from the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota, thank you for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. It's Friday the 13th, and this is the Civic Media Radio Network. I mean, I swear.
Oh boy.
Montserrat was always there, the font, and now it's nowhere to be found. And I'm sure I've got the right, I know I've got the right template selected.
It might not be you, Pat. I don't know if you heard about this or not. There were some problems with StreamYard yesterday afternoon.
Oh, I did see some chatter about that. Yes.
Yeah. So I would bet that something got changed.
Could be. Gosh,
by them without them telling us.
Okay. So I get to use this time to look at different fonts. Okay, that's not bad. That's relatively close. It's called Inter. Inter. Okay. What else we got here? Here's Nanito. Ooh, that's not Nito. Pangolin. Ooh.
What?
Quicksand. No. Red hat. Oh, that's actually not too bad. Let's look at some other banners here. I think I could actually go with that.
Yeah.
Where's my Brewers one? Right here. Yeah, that'll do. All right, red hat. You're no Montserrat, but you'll do the trick. So, thank you everybody for Pat searches for a font. The other thing I'm getting the little weak Wi-Fi signal thing from time to time.
Oh, that's
which again checks out. It's Friday the 13th. So,
yeah.
Roger, Arial is the standard font we use in all of our Google Docs and in everything else. But again, not an option that StreamYard gives us here. So, oh well. All right. Time for a sip of coffee, and then we'll get going in 20 seconds.
Secret Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pat Picks a Font. During the commercial break, we were able to find a reasonable facsimile of what we normally use. So we no longer look like we just discovered a quill and a jar of ink. The Brewers versus St. Louis, again, coverage starts at 6:35 across the Civic Media Radio Network. And let's see, Roger saying Arial is the standard font he uses at work. Yes, as it is for all of our documents. Tony saying the show seems so new and refreshed with this fancy new font. Yeah, that's how I'd put it. Roger from Stevens Point, the Mallards are in first place in their division. The Wausau Woodchucks are just a half game behind.
Let's go.
And Tony says, I saw a place to sign up for the politics newsletter on our website. I didn't see the bed and breakfast sign up on the website. Did I miss it? No, you did not. It's one of those by invitation only kind of deals. So, which one of these days we're going to do a morning show retreat up here. We'll get some of the Civic Media folks up here. We'll do a little pontoon ride. We'll stop at the Mallard, the little resort up here. It'll be a good time.
Different Mallard.
Yeah, not your Mallards. No, nice little watering hole up on the river here.
I'm a fan of water, so that's good.
It's not that kind of watering hole, but I understand. I understand that you get the joke. Okay, let's tell you what's in the Up North News Daily Newsletter. Kristin Lyerly puts it together. Sign up over at upnorthnewswi.com. And again, she's following the series from Food Network, 25 iconic eats and drinks from America's Dairyland. Today, it's the Kringle. Wisconsin loves Kringle. How should I put this? Maybe not all, because, again, I've spent a lot of time in western Wisconsin, and there's not as much Kringle. Nobody says bubbler here for the drinking fountain. But again, if you use, say 51 as your, or 39 as your spine of Wisconsin, east of there, folks love their Kringle. They'll head over to Racine. They'll head to Green Bay. They'll head to other places to get their favorite pastry. Learn more about it in our newsletter. And, here's a surprise. We do a lot of stories about anything that's popular in Wisconsin. That includes Culver's, that includes Quick Trip, and that always leads to correspondence from folks who say, well, what about their political donations? Here's a headline that Christine's put in. Let's talk about Culver's political donations. And there she notes, as I've said here on the program as well, that, for example, Craig Culver has a decades-long history of political contributions, not just Republicans, Democrats too, including yours truly, back in my legislative days, because it's very clear that there are certain people and I'm not casting aspersions at all, but there are certain people who like to make political donations to incumbents, to the people who are currently in office. And during my time in office, that included donations to Jim Doyle, and since then, the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer. And so, whatever his personal politics are, which he is not very vocal about, if you base things just on donations, you sometimes need to know kind of the whole backstory of the way that some people make their political donations. And Christina writes about that in our newsletter. Again, sign up at upnorthnewswi.com. Well, the Joint Finance Committee met yesterday in the legislature. Now, before you start snoring or turning the dial, we're going to try to keep this real basic here. Okay, the legislature takes your tax dollars and every 2 years passes a state budget and says, okay, here's how we're going to do the state income tax and other taxes. Here's how we're going to do the spending on schools and on the roads and business development and the environment and things like that. And we have a $4 billion surplus, but we've also underfunded schools for 16 consecutive years compared to the rate of inflation. That's why you see so many referendums. Schools are in crisis more than ever because of this chronic underfunding. Republicans have said, well, we got this $4 billion surplus and we want tax cuts. And after months of back and forth behind the scenes, the governor got to a point where he agreed to a lot of what the Republicans want to do for tax cuts, but the Republicans wouldn't come nearly as far as he thought they should go in terms of, investing in our schools and things like that. So yesterday, to really make it official, Republicans on the Joint Finance Committee did work on the tax cut part of the budget. And, it is something that you could, in the details, see that Governor Evers would look at it and go, all right, it's not exactly what I would do, but I would go along with this. But then on the spending side, on our school side, let's just look at special education reimbursement for a moment. Because every school district, school districts can't say, oh, you can't come. Everybody gets an education who comes, every child, including those with disabilities that might need special education. It is by nature more expensive to provide that. And so for years and years, state government said, here, we will help out local school districts and we will reimburse some of the cost of your special education. Now, once upon a time, that rate was something like 80%. And then came down to 60% and on and on. And then it was down to 30%. And Republicans have agreed to bring it from 32% to 37.5%. Now, what did Governor Evers want? He said, let's bring it up to 60%. Again, still not as good as it used to be, but it would really help stop the cycle of referendums if we could help school districts with their special education costs. Republicans said, nah, the best we can do is 37.5%. But by the way, they fund the voucher schools. They fund that reimbursement at 90%. So again, it's about choosing priorities like private schools and tax cuts rather than investing in all schools across the state. We'll hear more from Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hesselbein after the Midwest Farm Report on the Civic Media Radio Network. Next week on the program, we'll have Jeff Mandel on Monday from the progressive legal group Law Forward against the new suit that they have filed against Elon Musk in an attempt to get courts to rule once and for all on the matter of what I would call billionaire bribery. To what degree can somebody of immense wealth buy up so much communication space in Wisconsin by offering money to voters, not directly for their vote, but in a way that's really, really, really close to it? Should we keep allowing that? Is there a line someplace that even a billionaire can't cross in Wisconsin? Jeff Mandel will talk about that. We'll also be joined by author Laura Bird on the subject of memoirs, which are not the same as an autobiography. And she'll talk about what memoirs are and some really good ones that she would recommend you adding to your summer reading list. On Tuesday, we'll have Hans Breitenmoser. I'm sure we'll be talking about comments that President Trump made online yesterday saying, gosh, our farmers are really getting hit hard by this immigration crackdown. We're going to have to do something about it. Really? when you're not busy trying to, have the military take over every major American city, maybe look at what your mass deportation thing is doing to farms in Wisconsin and elsewhere and the agribusiness industry as a whole, and then get back to us. In the meantime, by the way, in California, one judge said that President Trump did not legally take away control of the California National Guard from Governor Gavin Newsom and has to put the Guard back under the governor's control. But an appeals court then quickly said, well, we want to hear it. So it froze everything in place. So there hasn't been much of a change since yesterday, one that we will continue to monitor based on the ongoing court fights about when a president should adhere to the law. And then finally on Tuesday, Dan Schaefer from the recombobulation area, he will recap the state Democratic convention and have reaction to his column about Governor Evers and whether he should run for a third term. All right, before the Joint Finance Committee met yesterday, we had a chance to talk yesterday with State Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hesselbein. I began by asking her about the way that Republicans walked away from negotiations with Governor Evers and whether she knew if there was anything new to report on Republican progress on reaching any kind of agreement with the governor on a new state budget. Let's visit now with State Senator Dianne Hesselbein of Middleton. She's the Senate Minority Leader and joins us now to talk a bit about the state budget and other goings-on in my my former workplace over there. Senator, how are you?
I'm doing well, Pat. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. It's nice to have you along to get a little update on things. The last major update that any of us got on the state budget was hearing, well, first off, somewhat surprisingly to some of us, that Republican leadership and Governor Evers, or at the staff level, had been talking for weeks and weeks here, apparently. But we didn't learn that until we learned that Republicans had apparently broken off negotiations and walked away. That's the last we heard of it. Was that kind of your understanding of how things had unfolded? And is there any news, any breakthroughs to report since then?
Not really. The governor did meet with the Republican leaders, though, himself, and then staff did as well. And I think they were getting pretty close to an agreement. And unfortunately, the Republicans just walked away. It's unfortunate because I think if they would have went to their individual caucuses and said, look, we can get some of these things done that were their priorities, and the governor also wanted some of the governor's priorities funded in the budget, it seemed like that kind of a situation would be a win-win for the state of Wisconsin. But unfortunately, the Republicans walked away, and they are just doing the budget as they always have by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this. With a $4 billion surplus, you can find a win-win. There's no shortage of paths to a win-win. And I did wonder how much of this was, leadership driven, or maybe leadership was actually close to a compromise, but they had some, far right members in their caucus who wouldn't vote for it. I can, think of a few of them off the top of my head. But whatever the reason, I think the governor framed it pretty well in saying that he was willing to meet them halfway on tax cuts, even though they wouldn't be exactly how he would have designed them, but that Republicans wouldn't meet him halfway on making some of the key investments that a state budget is supposed to do. Is that your understanding as well?
Exactly. The governor made it clear to them and to us as well that, he's still fighting for K-12 education, childcare, and higher education. Those are things that are very important to him. And unfortunately, the Republicans refused to meet him halfway.
Which, again, is what what a budget process is supposed to be
Right.
about, to say, look, here are various priorities. Let's talk about a couple of individual notes that may be part of this, or may be considered on either side of the budget bill. We just spoke in the last segment about the stewardship program and how it appeared Republicans had introduced a bill that would, in fact, make some investments into the Knowles-Nelson stewardship program, only to learn now that there's a quote unquote trailer bill that's attached, which if it doesn't pass, then the original legislation doesn't pass. And I tried to explain the concept of a poison pill without necessarily saying that this is what it is, but this is what to be on the lookout for, because, I mean, sadly, Senator, this is not news of something that we've seen tried a few times in the past.
Absolutely. And I know I've had discussions with Republican colleagues about the importance of Knowles-Nelson. And certainly there have been a lot of environmental activists that have come in, and advocates that have come in to tell us the importance of Knowles-Nelson and those important green spaces that we're able to save all across the state of Wisconsin. So I am hopeful that we're going to get something good done for Knowles-Nelson. I do not believe it'll be happening in the budget. I believe it'll be something we'll be dealing with this fall.
Okay, so again, more to come on that one as well, which is completely understandable. There's other legislation to consider. So let's get to some that Democrats have introduced lately, and that included package of bills, I should say, that is designed to essentially defend Wisconsin against some of the excesses of what the Trump administration is trying to do. We spoke very briefly about it with Senator Chris Larson on Monday, so I'm glad we've got a couple of extra minutes here to expound on it. What are the ways that Democrats are proposing that could send a message to the Trump administration saying, you can't do these things, and if you do try to do them, here's what the state of Wisconsin would do in return?
Yeah, we have a whole package of bills that we were trying to be creative as soon as we saw what was happening in the federal government. What can Wisconsin do? What can we as lawmakers do in the state of Wisconsin to stand up to these mega Republicans and Donald Trump? So one of them was protecting Wisconsin taxpayers from unlawful federal actions by withholding funds. And what that would do was it provides the state, the Wisconsin, a way to respond when the federal government fails to send money that was legally promised through Congress. Certainly we know what President Trump is doing with a lot of these actions is unconstitutional. What can we do? We can hold and block funds as well. So we were looking at how to do that in a creative way that would make sense for Wisconsinites. And I know that other states are looking at these bills and considering the same type of action.
Well, because again, it's not even clear that some of these actions are legal in the first place, and so states have to look for whatever recourse they can get. The one that really caught my attention, as you mentioned, being creative on these things, was making sure that sensitive personal data couldn't be shared unless it was being done essentially in accordance with law, with existing law, and not some executive order that may or may not stand up in court when all is said and done. So again, you've got legislators who are not just looking out for the public dollars, but your own private data.
Honestly, and that's something that we're hearing about at listening sessions and all across the state, is people being worried. Who has their data? How are they using it? Are they being micro-targeted? Is it safe? Is their own information safe out there? So we did something to prohibit the state from sharing an individual's personally identifiable information with the federal government, just saying, nope, you can't have it. It's not safe for people.
There were some other, there were many things that Governor Evers put in the proposed budget, and more than 600 of them were removed by Republicans on the Joint Finance Committee. And so, again, there's been legislation introduced by Democrats to essentially put some of those back, pass them as separate legislation if need be. And that includes some measures on gun safety. And I was really struck by a quote from your colleague, Senator LaTanya Johnson of Milwaukee, who said here in an article from Wisconsin Public Radio, "Year after year, I've watched Republicans cut every single gun safety proposal from the state budget, and year after year, we see more victims and families burying their babies." And there is this real world cost of inaction that Senator Johnson is trying to get out there. And all you can really do is, again, hold up for the public the newest bills that you're introducing and saying somebody is trying.
Yeah, we are trying. I mean, we want background checks on every gun sale. That's important that we know that people who want to own a gun can own a gun, but should they own a gun? And background checks will make that be known. Also, a waiting period for the purchase of handguns. That's extremely important. We have people all over our state, and they're going through maybe a mental health crisis, and maybe they buy a gun to maybe harm themselves or others. And this would just say, we're going to have a waiting period, cooling off period. Make sure that you're okay to purchase this gun. And some people might wake up the next morning and decide they're glad they didn't have that gun. I have a former colleague, Jonathan Brostoff. He was on the suicide task force. He spoke about having these mental health challenges and how this would have helped him in his time of need. Unfortunately, he made a decision to buy a gun and to end his life. And he stood up for this bill, knew what it would mean for Wisconsinites and him. And unfortunately, we did not have this bill in place to save his life. So that is something that I know we'll be fighting for every single day, as we miss our colleague every single day, and can only think of what could be and what the city of Milwaukee would be like if he were still in it. The other one is extreme risk protection orders and a ghost gun bill that's important to me. But every single one of these, we know they would save lives. And that is why Democrats are fighting for just some common sense gun measures that the state of Wisconsin could have.
And by the way, you say you want these. It's not just you. It's an overwhelming majority of people in Wisconsin. In poll after poll after poll, you're talking 70, 80%, sometimes more, for either background checks or waiting periods for handguns or red flag laws. And I'm sure, I haven't seen the polling, but I'm sure it'd be the same on ghost guns as well. These are supported by such a broad, bipartisan group of people across the state and across the country. And it is really telling when Republican lawmakers in Madison, Washington, D.C., and elsewhere can't seem to muster up the political courage to do something that so many of their constituents want.
Absolutely. And so many of their constituents want to be safe. And so many of my constituents want to be safe. I mean, it's gun violence. It happens everywhere. I mean, we had a place in Middleton, a business, that somebody brought a ghost gun in and started shooting. Now we're somewhat fortunate, you can say that, but nobody was injured or killed except for the shooter. But still, the shooter was killed, and the police officers that responded that day some of them are still suffering from what they saw that day. Some of them are still not on the job because of what happened. So gun violence affects everybody in our community. First responders, the people who are there when something terrible happens, kids. I mean, where is it safe to go where you don't have to worry about getting shot? I mean, Pat, when you and I were younger, we went to school and we had tornado drills. They have gun drills now. Kindergartners have gun drills to figure out where to go and what a safe place is and how their teachers can keep them safe.
It still breaks my heart to think of my grandkids are doing this in school, and it traumatizes them when it happens, and yet they have to do it again only for the lack of some courage by lawmakers in positions of power. And we'll leave it with the other conversation piece. And we got reaction earlier today from Melissa Baldoff to this as well, to the Dan Schaefer column that makes the case that Governor Tony Evers has been a great governor, but he should not run for a third term. There's some folks that are saying, well, you're just handing the Democrats a gift, and others saying, yeah, we got to have this conversation. So you're going to hear the conversation, Senator. What's your quick answer to people speculating on the governor's plans?
Governor Evers has done a great job for the state of Wisconsin, and I know he has made it quite clear that he wants to wait until our budget is over until he makes a decision if he is running again. And I know he'll make the right decision for himself and for the state of Wisconsin.
State Senator Diane Hesselbein, the Senate Democratic leader, talking to us from Middleton. Senator, thank you so much. Great to catch up with you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. Have a wonderful day. Look how dark it is in there.
Oh, he's coming to us from the shadows.
From the cave.
This one up really quick, and then I'm going to go run to the other room where there's actually lights. So I'm going to turn this camera off.
Okay.
And give me 30 seconds.
But I like the mysteriousness of it all. Like,
It's very Friday the 13th.
Greg Bach After Dark.
Oh. I don't know how I managed to do that. I'm sorry. I don't have any clue.
I do. We've been bouncing back and forth with all these things. So, yeah, I should have just removed the one. But anyway,
I don't know. That's on me.
All right.
Echo, get that.
Whoa.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There.
Or I can just let the echo go.
Pigeon Quest.
Pigeon Quest. No.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Pigeon Quest.
Jesus. I leave you alone for a week and you become complete dorks.
Yep.
All right.
You knew it was happening. Hey, Greg Bach.
Hey, Pat Kreitlow.
Do I stress you out? My sweater's on backwards and inside out. And you say?
Yeah, I see what you did there. It's
You're
great.
supposed to say how appropriate.
How appropriate.
Greg Bach's been gone a week and has already lost that comedic timing genius that we come to love and miss so well. But he's back now for a Friday edition of today's history lesson. Mr. Bach, how are you doing?
Pat, if I've told you one thing, it's one thing only. It's what I've said it over and over again. Comedy is about
Greg, what is comedy all about?
timing. It's about
Okay,
timing.
good. Glad we got that out of the way. Alanis Morissette released Jagged Little Pill this day in 1995 and would go on to become a juggernaut. Birthdays today include Tim Allen. He's 72 years old today and still grouchy. Ali Sheedy, one of the Brat Pack, is 63 today.
Oh, my God.
I know. ESPN's Hannah Storm is 63.
Oh, Pat, what did you do? You unlocked a new level.
Oh, no.
So, okay, wait, really quick. Parker, have you heard of the movie The Breakfast Club?
Okay, yeah.
So
I've seen
those actors that were some of those actors in that movie were part of a group called the Brat Pack. They were a group of kids, actors from the 80s who were in a bunch of movies together and apart, but they were like all the rage.
Okay.
Ask your peepaw.
Actually, there was a
peepaw is all about it, I'm sure.
There was a documentary about it last year, in the past year, that was quite good.
You thought it was good? Okay.
I did. I thought it was okay. All right, we're going to disagree on that one. All right. Let's see. Other birthdays today include the late, great Bobby Freeman. You don't hear enough bongos in music today.
You really don't.
This was Bobby Freeman's 1958 hit. He passed away in 2017. It was on this day in 1966, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Miranda v. Arizona that police must inform suspects of their Fifth Amendment rights before questioning them. You have the right to remain silent. That started this day in 1966. In 1967, President Lyndon Johnson nominated Solicitor General Thurgood Marshall to become the first black justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. Happy birthday to Rivers Cuomo. He's 55 years old today. Who is Rivers Cuomo, you ask? Listen to this and see if it helps out at all.
That's where I want to be.
So Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, which still doesn't help me, but I know it helps other people. He's 55 years old today.
Pat, he's like a few years younger than you. Don't act like he's in some new rock band. Like,
isn't Weezer how long has Weezer been
Weezer's
around?
been around for like 30 years.
I don't know. I'm watching reruns of the Lawrence Welk show over here.
Oh, what are you? I think you just want to be old.
He's an old soul. That's
I have been old for a very long time.
Yeah.
The I want to say the original Captain America, Chris Evans, is 44. Is original the right? Well, for that Marvel universe, yes. Chris Evans is 44. The Olsen twins, Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, 39 years old today. That's going to make a lot of people feel old next year when they turn 40. And this week in 1988, Paula Abdul released her debut album. Here's the title track.
Sang it, Greg.
Yeah. The thing is, again, if you don't use it, you lose it. And we're talking about exercise, physical fitness, all that. Paula Abdul never stopped dancing, can still dance as good as she did back then. And she does commercials to prove it.
Nice.
Nancy says on YouTube, Weezer popular in the 80s.
No.
Tony's like, for me, I think the 1880s, is that what I would relate to?
Y'all know that that 30 years ago was like the mid 90s.
I was going to say, well, that's Alanis Morissette. We started with Jagged Little Pill. That was 30 years ago today.
Yeah.
30 years ago today that Jagged Little Pill was released. Which is why Nancy on YouTube was like, Ali Sheedy is 63? No! Yes, it's true. Today is International Axe Throwing Day.
So watch out, everybody.
Don't have a bad day at work. I really want to make sure we put some guardrails on that one.
It's also Regional Duck Day.
Regional Duck Day.
Not quack quack. Get down.
Get down.
Oh.
This is World Softball Day, and this is National Sewing Machine Day. Now, I'm old enough that we had to take home economics courses, and that included sewing classes. So we actually, I made like a little backpack kind of thing. Did either of you have to do sewing classes or ever touch a sewing machine?
It was part of like a home ec class. Yeah.
We didn't have home ec in my high school. They didn't teach that stuff at all. I wish I would. Well, it's not too late. I'd like to learn how to use a sewing machine. I think it's just those are valuable skills to have, like sewing and just like even just putting on buttons and whatnot. I think that's a good thing to know.
That's actually I talked to my mom yesterday, and she actually said she's doing that this weekend. She called up a couple of her granddaughters and said, I don't know what's taking me so long, but you get over here, I'm going to teach you how to sew. And those nieces of mine were very happy to be invited. And like you said, these are skills they're going to take with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sherry's the same way, although in her case, it's from sewing people up after surgery. But it really helps. When we're putting buttons on, these buttons do not come off.
Dr. Kreitlow, you can't put buttons on the suture. You just can't put, yes, it looks wonderful. The colors go, but you can't do that.
No, you can't solve a C-section with snaps or buttons.
No
Velcro. No, none of that, please. So,
boy.
Mr. Bach, before you go, are you doing anything fun for the weekend here?
This is the final weekend of the Laughing Tap, or this location. Two more shows, then there's an open mic on Wednesday, and then that location closes, and we'll be announcing the new one hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But that's going to be, and then I'm going to be producing. I'll be producing Amicus tomorrow with Jim Santel, so that's always going to be fun. And we have Dan Schaefer today on Matt and Air on Air. We're going to be talking about, an article he put out this week that's getting a lot of attention.
A little tiny article, exactly. Thank you, Greg. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me. See you guys.
All right. Couple more hours to go, including our week in review panel coming up right after the 7 o'clock news on a Friday morning, powered by Up North News on the Civic Media Radio Network. Hey, baby.
Hey, baby.
Baby.
All right, I gotta go, but you guys have yourself a fine weekend.
You too. See ya.
Yeah. Bye.
Morning, Mark. Yes, you very much are here with the right link. How are you?
Great, good.
Okay, good. All right, we got just under a minute till we come back and do weather. I'll tuck you back in the waiting room here. Hey, Brittany, how are you?
Good morning. Pretty good. How are you?
Wet.
I know.
It's just, ew.
Gross.
I know. All right, see you in a bit.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It is 7:06. It's nice to have you here up north on this Friday morning, Friday the 13th of June, 2025. And coming up, of course, on Fridays, it'll be our Week in Review panel with Chicago journalists Mark Jacob, Jennifer Schulze, former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel. Now, by the way, I neglected to mention last hour, folks would normally hear Courier Newsroom's Kia Vakil. He's on vacation this week, which is why we played back some of our interview with Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hasselbein about the state budget. But I think we have Kia back next week. I forget how long his vacation goes here. But we will have our regular Week in Review panel here. And then 1 hour from now, we will be interviewing Chris Taylor, Judge Chris Taylor, candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, potential candidate to go up against far-right Justice Rebecca Bradley in next year's state Supreme Court race in April. Dr. Kristin Lyerly will join us for that. And then just after 8:30, Mike Clemens will be here. A lot of weekend sports to go over, including the big debut last night for a Brewers pitching phenom who was pitching lights out until he rolled his ankle. So we'll have an update on that coming up as well. So much still ahead, including the weekend forecast from meteorologist Brittany Merlot. And as I'm looking at the river of rain on the radar here, Brittany, it stretches from roughly Duluth to La Crosse. It's that wide and stretches way back into the the mountains pretty much. I mean, it's just this river of rain that's going to pour right over Wisconsin for a while.
Yes, unfortunately. I mean, we've already picked up a half an inch to an inch and a half to places far west already. And this is just the start of it. So we've got another half an inch to an inch to go today, maybe another half an inch still tomorrow as well. And then we could still see some a little bit linger. And we've got rain, honestly, as we go into the entire next week too. So a very, very active, unsettled pattern. And of course, cloudy skies for a majority of the state. There is spots of sunshine far south along the state line, Madison, Milwaukee area. You could see that as well. So you have chances to stay dry. More sunshine south. That rain is going to continue to pour up north as we go through our day today, becoming moderate to heavy at times. A few rumbles of thunder are also possible as well. And then by this afternoon, a few scattered storms could pop up in the southern areas. Now, it's a smaller chance, but there is that chance. So heads up for that. Otherwise, you're staying dry. Highs today will make it only to the mid-50s where it's raining, mid-70s far south. Then as we go to tomorrow morning, spotty rain lingers far northeast. We are looking at some more showers and storms sparking up far northwest in the afternoon and then rolling through the state through the evening. Highs tomorrow will be about 60 degrees up north, 80 degrees down south. So if you're looking for the summer weather and some sunshine, southern parts is where it's at. But everyone is going to be dry on Sunday. Highs in the 70s statewide. But I'll tell you what, heads up, Monday, get that AC ready. It's going to start to get pretty hot and humid with some stronger to severe storms possible. This week, nothing to worry about.
This is more of a nuisance, and then the hot and humid comes back. But for now, nothing like that rain with a stiff east wind slapping it right in your face there. And that's,
Oh, I know. But you know what? That east wind yesterday, I think it cut off a lot of the rainfall for a lot of the state for a while. So it actually helped a little bit. But now, yep, here it is.
All right. By the way, your Scotty Summer text to win keyword is coming up in just a moment or two here. First, to pass along on YouTube, Cassandra talking about in our last segment, my husband still sews because his mom taught him. He made an anatomically correct heart for me to take to work. That's very sweet.
Yeah.
I would like to know your profession.
What's that?
I would like to know your profession, Cassandra, because a correct heart.
An anatomically correct heart.
Yeah.
It could be fun, you know? So anyway, yes, men should learn to sew too. Good morning from Tigerton, writes Rob. Light rain, windy, 48 degrees, 0.4 of an inch of rain. Mowed 2 yards in the town of Germania. They were big yards. I had a Big Mac salad at Blazer's Bar and Grill in Split Rock. It was very good. He says, when the Breakfast Club came out in 1984, I was a junior in high school. Remember seeing that movie in Wausau. Definitely jacket type of weather. A northeast wind makes it feel a lot colder. And then concludes by saying, maybe next week you play that Supertramp song, It's Raining Again, for the next week. But,
yes, that's perfect, Rob.
Yes. Oh, and Cassandra is an ICU nurse, she adds.
Okay.
So you see,
acceptable thing though.
It totally tracks. Yes, exactly. All right, Brittany, thanks. We'll talk to you in the next hour.
Sounds good.
Let's get that Scotty Summer text to win contest all done. Final day of it today. Statewide contest on nearly every civic media station, or 4 times a day. You can win $100 cash or a pair of Brewers tickets, club level, great seats. And every entry puts you in the drawing for one of the grand prizes. There's a Wisconsin Dells Baraboo area getaway and one in Door County as well. Some gas money to get you there. Each time throughout the day, including 3 more times after this before the contest ends, different keywords, text them to us through the Civic Media app. Go to the app, go to one of the stations, use the text button, text us this hour's keyword. And this hour's keyword for a pair of Brewers tickets, the keyword is water. Again, water, W-A-T-E-R. Water is the keyword for a pair of Brewers tickets. You have until the end of this hour to text that in, and then you will be eligible for this hour's prize of the Brewers tickets and the grand prize drawings as well. And only 3 more chances to play, 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m., different keywords each time. Again, for a pair of Brewers tickets, the keyword to text in is water, W-A-T-E-R. I love that we're giving away the Brewers tickets. These are such good seats, and I'm pretty sure that once the Scotty Summer Text to Win contest is done, we will be going back to where we do some free ticket Fridays for Brewers games. So you'll want to be listening on Fridays throughout the summer here as we try to get you in the seats there at American Family Field. A lot of folks were there last night to see the debut of the Brewers' top pitching prospect, Jacob Misiorowski, 23 years old, making his major league debut last night against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I thought it was pretty cool that he set him down 1-2-3 in the first inning. Second inning, he faced 3 batters, but he needed a double play because he had a walk. And then there were still no hits after 3 innings, no hits after 4 innings. I'm like, this guy's just pitched his first 4 innings of Major League Baseball, no hits. 5 innings, still no hits. At that point, at the place where I'm sitting and kind of looking at the game on my phone, I'm like, guys, this kid has a no-hitter going through 5. Comes out for the 6th inning. I mean, this kid's throwing 100 miles, 101, 102 miles an hour. 102 miles an hour. Comes in, throws a few on the 6th inning, rolls his ankle, says he's feeling cramping in his right leg, and leaves the game with a no-hitter into the 6th inning. Apparently not serious. We will talk to Mike Clemens about that coming up next hour as the Brewers continue their series with the St. Louis Cardinals. Again, the Brewers did win. They brought the bats out. 6-0 was the final. A nice home run by Jackson Churio among the scoring. The series continues against the Cardinals in Milwaukee. Coverage begins at 6:35 on several civic media stations, Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, Hayward. So again, tune in on the radio. Head over to the Civic Media website to learn more. For folks that are following the Stanley Cup Finals, and who have to go to bed early, like me, thinking that Florida was going to win another one. They were up 3-0 after the first period. Edmonton came all the way back, even took the lead. Then Florida tied it up with 20 seconds left in regulation, so they went to overtime, and Edmonton was your winner, 5-4 in overtime. The Stanley Cup Finals are tied at 2 games apiece. Game 5 is tomorrow in Edmonton. The NBA Finals tip off tonight, Game 4 in Indiana, where Indiana has a 2-1 lead over Oklahoma City. And then we've got the WIAA Girls Softball Championships in play in Madison right now. We've got Packers mini camp to talk about with Mike Clemens as well. Jordan Love getting married, Aaron Rodgers getting married. There's just so much to cover here. Oh, and a Brewers pitcher is demanding a trade as well. So we got a lot to talk about here with Mike when we meet up with him after our interview with Chris Taylor and Dr. Kristin Lyerly joining us as well. If you missed it, also in the last hour, we basically gave you an update on the legislature and trying to craft a state budget. We mentioned at the start of the week that Republicans basically walked away from the negotiating table. Governor Evers was willing to meet them when it came to a tax cut plan. They were not willing to meet him in doing the things a state budget is supposed to do, like support our schools. And so you saw that reflected in what the Joint Finance Committee did yesterday, where they worked on their tax cut plan, and they worked on a special education spending plan that does increase the state's reimbursement for special education to public schools, but not nearly to the level that would be needed to end what is an endless string of school referendums going on around the state. Republicans are looking at the dollar amount and saying, look, we voted to increase special education funding by more than $200 million. Governor Evers was saying, yeah, you need to add another $900 million more to make schools whole and to end this endless cycle of referendums. But set aside the dollar amounts for a moment and just look at the reimbursement rate at which, the state will help school districts for that larger price tag that comes with special education. Back in 1980, I learned from Molly Beck in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. In 1980, the state reimbursed 2/3 of the cost of special education, 66%. It had come down to about 30%. And then it came up in the last budget to 32%. And Governor Evers said, look, can we at least get back to 60%? Let's get to 60%, help out with special education costs, especially since Republicans reimburse voucher schools at 90%. 90% reimbursement for special education for voucher schools. The governor said, could we at least get to 60? Because we're at 32 right now. Republicans were like those guys in the pawn shop show going, best we can do is 37.5. So that's what they voted on, 37.5, which enables them to say, look at the millions and millions of dollars we put into it, without acknowledging they're hundreds of millions of dollars short. And so you, dear property taxpayer, will continue making up the difference, even as Republican legislators sit on a state surplus of $4 billion. Now, Republicans did work on their tax cut plan as well. And according to Jesse Opoine's story in the Journal-Sentinel, it means about 1.5 million Wisconsinites will pay lower income taxes. The Republicans are allocating about $1.3 billion to it. It does expand the state's second lowest tax bracket. So it does not seem like an unreasonable tax cut plan. But again, the real story is the governor said, yeah, this isn't what I'd write, but I can go along with this. Now, how about you guys help out our schools that you've been underfunding for 16 years? And Republicans said, no, it's something, it's a shortfall they would just as soon perpetuate. And that's what we have happening right now. All right, still ahead, we'll be talking with our Week in Review panel, Mark Jacob, Jim Santel, Jennifer Schulze, later Judge Chris Taylor, running for Supreme Court, Kristin Lyerly, Mike Clemens, all from the heart of America's Up North, live from Lake Wissota, here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. and the esteemed panel has arrived. How you doing?
Morning.
Well. Excelente.
Good. Yeah, Jim, I think we'll obviously have to go with the latest legal things on the National Guard and who's commandeering them. And then we'll get into the actual events and the coverage of them. So that's where we're going to start. So we'll do that for this segment. Obviously, we'll get to Senator Padilla. It is Padilla, right? Being tackled at the event. Mark, I've got your column here. Jennifer, I've got your column here. And then, once again, same as before, we'll go up until 7:49, and I've got free space now in that next segment. So if any of you want to stick around all the way to 8 o'clock, you're very welcome. If you got to bail, you just let me know. That's totally fine too. So I think we're in good shape here. We got 90 seconds to go, so I'll come back for you in a bit. Once again, our Scotty Summer Text to Win contest keyword for this hour is water, W-A-T-E-R, water. And you can text that in using the Civic Media app by the end of the hour to be eligible for Brewers tickets and be part of the grand prize drawing as well. Jim from Brookfield on the text line, why doesn't Governor Evers use his bully pulpit to hold a press conference, use bar graphs, and call out the Republicans on school funding? You're not the first person who has said that. Can more be done? I will let the governor speak for himself on that one. He did make an appearance in the Chippewa Valley yesterday, and local media covered it. I recall seeing sound bites on the governor's impression of, the National Guard being used the way that it was in California and what would happen if something similar happened here in Wisconsin. So that's going to get us talking to our panel because, again, it was the way that President Trump essentially commandeered the National Guard away from California's governor to politicize and militarize protests against ICE. That has been one of the big stories of the week. So we've got former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel here. He hosts Amicus, a law review, every Saturday morning across the Civic Media Radio Network. Jennifer Schulze is here. You can find her columns on Substack. And, of course, we've got Mark Jacob here as well. You can find what he works on at stopthepresses.news. Hello, panel. It's nice to have you all here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
James, we will start with you, former U.S. Attorney, where for a time the Trump regime, and I think I might just go with that word now, the Trump regime's plan for a military presence in every major American city was dealt a bit of a setback by a judge, although not then the setback was kind of set back a bit. Tell us what's the latest on that.
Sure. So this is federal judge Charles Breyer, B-R-E-Y-E-R. He's in San Francisco, and he receives, again, this emergency petition from the governor saying that the president does not have the authority to do what he is doing there. And in a monumental 36-page ruling, it's extraordinary. Again, I always assign reading to all your listeners, right? It's worth reading. It really is very good. It's accessible. He basically says that there is not a rebellion. He invokes the statute For what it's worth, it's the Military Act of 1903, Section 12406. And you can only do this if, in fact, the Commonwealth, the United States, is invaded, or there's a danger of invasion, there's a rebellion or some danger, and the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. He goes through all this analysis and says, okay, we're looking at what we're seeing on the ground here, not a rebellion, not an invasion, sort of like the Alien Enemies Act analysis as well. Excuse me. And in the end, he says, just because there are some individuals who may have caused some violence here does not rise to the level of a rebellion. And notably, he says, individuals' right to protest the government is one of the fundamental rights protected by the First Amendment. Just because some stray bad actors go too far does not wipe out that right for everyone. The idea that protesters can so quickly cross the line between protected conduct and rebellion is untenable and dangerous. He says, nope, got to stop it. The Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, the appellate court beyond him, does enter an administrative stay. That sounds as bad as it probably is, but it basically suspends that for a while they can take a look at his order. It doesn't mean that they have reversed it. That is not the case. They simply said, we'll keep everything in place for now. It does mean that for this weekend and the No Kings protests around the country, Donald Trump remains in power there, and the judge's order is not in effect. So back and forth a bit, but a very compelling piece of writing from the judiciary, once again, saying, Donald Trump, but you don't have the authority to do this.
Which, Mark Jacob, we all knew. It was self-evident that this had nothing to do with actual rebellion. This was about using, authoritarian, dictatorial, levers of power to put your opponents at the end of a gun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the basic MO of these folks is calling everything an emergency or an invasion or an insurrection. And therefore they can, not go through due process and other normal efforts. Instead, can just do whatever they want. It's, it's Trump trying to be a king, and in LA, they sent in the guard, but before they sent in the guard, things calmed down because, obviously it was the kind of street disturbances that happen in this country sometimes, and the local authorities were able to handle it. And so Trump claimed, well, the National Guard fixed the whole thing. Well, the National Guard hadn't even arrived when it got everything calmed down. So, I mean, they're just lying about this. And Pat, I also want to mention in this context that Kristi Noem said yesterday, everyone is focusing on the Padilla stuff and the senator being thrown to the ground and handcuffed, which is, I understand that why they would. But Kristi Noem at that same event said that they were sending that their attempt was to liberate California and Los Angeles from the socialists. They said that was their goal. Well, that's in effect, that's regime change. That's them deciding that they're going to subvert duly elected authorities of a state.
Oh, that's nothing new. That undermining the results of an election. You've had, in Florida, was it the governor replacing sheriffs or district attorneys, things like that.
Right.
So this is very much par for the course. And Jennifer, quick before this break here, we've got a minute here, but one of the things at the heart of coverage of this is this a riot or is this a protest, and how newsrooms decide to approach the way they cover these things?
Well, it's a riot if you work for Donald Trump. So if you're right-wing media, it's a riot. And in fact, he's been calling it an insurrection. Obviously, it's neither. But if I spent a lot of time this week on right-wing media, Fox in particular, and I thought my head was going to light on fire. And that is the predominant media outlet in the country, and people are being told things that are so wildly false about Los Angeles and being shown AI generated pictures of things that are, they're fake.
They are. And so we'll talk more about the fakery and the perils of news coverage here when we return with Jennifer, Jim, and Mark, all part of our Friday morning, powered by Up North News, here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. We'll be back right after the Midwest Farm Report and an update. right. Here's that big old 5-minute break here.
All right, I got to get some more coffee.
All right, go for it. I ain't got enough coffee.
Otherwise, there will be rebellion here on
Yes.
Civic Media.
We can't have that. Jim, is 2 hours enough for you tomorrow?
Oh,
hey Jim, before I forget, you got a flyaway in your hair up here.
okay, yes,
bring
yeah.
you up, there.
That's right.
Occupational hazard in radio.
Yep. Lots of things going on here.
There you go. That's good. Just
somewhat better. Okay, good.
I know. You see, we used to not have to think about this in radio. Then
Right.
Darn social media came along. So, okay. All right. I will be back in just a minute here.
Very good.
Here we go. Did you know you can pod this program? Absolutely. Head over to Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe. And that way you can listen to us on demand, listen back to previous shows as well. We'd love to have you along as a subscriber. All right, let's bring in that Friday panel. Chicago veteran journalists Jennifer Schulze and Mark Jacob and former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel. Or to be more specific about it, you can get Mark's newsletter at stopthepresses.news. You can also follow him at couriernewsroom.com. Jennifer Schulze's Indistinct Chatter is on Substack. Search for @NewsJennifer. And, of course, Amicus, a law review with Jim Santel, can be heard on Saturday mornings starting at 9 on several civic media stations. Head to civicmedia.us to learn more. Needless to say, the big story this week has been Trump politicizing and militarizing protests against his mass deportation, which, again, took a turn that, while some people say it was expected, that, you know, you're trolling Home Depot parking lots and things like that. This was also the guy that said, well, I just want to go after the bad guys. I want to get after the criminals and the thugs. Clearly, that's not what's been happening here, Mark. And so it was surprising / amusing to see Trump post on his little social media site yesterday that he's aware that this mass deportation thing is starting to hurt farmers, and so he's going to make some changes. Is he? And does he really understand, or was that just a bone to throw out and go, no, I was never just going to go after the bad guys?
Well, I think that that's just a bone to throw out. I think he's just saying that to try to keep his base in his base, because I think that his base is eroding. His poll numbers are bad, and he's making a mess out of everything. And I don't think. I mean, clearly, all these consequences of this immigration enforcement were easily predictable. I mean, come on. I mean, if you got a lot of immigrants picking farm products, picking crops, and they go away, you scare the hell out of them and chase them out of the country. Well, what's going to happen? How's that going to affect our dinner table? A lot. And so everyone knows that. And so for him to act like, he just woke up a day or two ago and realized that it's going to affect the farm industry is crazy. I just think that I don't think Trump is a member of government. What I'm saying is I don't think that he's trying to govern. I think he's trying to be political, and I think he's trying to exploit government for his business, but he's not trying to implement policies that help people in any way whatsoever. It's all a matter of him trying to increase his own personal money and power any way he can.
Yes, there's a difference between those who want to govern and those who want to rule. And right. Jennifer, again, it's important to make that distinction that we're having the one discussion about mass deportations and how they're being handled versus the protests against that and how the Trump administration is covering them. And, whether media is covering them as a protest or as a riot, it certainly is apparent that the Trump administration still wants to go full steam ahead, to the point where at a news conference for Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem yesterday, a U.S. Senator from California wanted to talk to the secretary and was tackled and handcuffed and dragged away despite identifying himself. And while Kristi Noem essentially wasn't really telling the truth, I would argue, about the circumstances behind it, I don't think anybody should hold their breath expecting an apology, and that things like this won't happen again.
Well, she met with Padilla after the incident, and I was just reading about an interview that he gave about that meeting where he said she didn't apologize. So that's not going to happen. I do think that in a normal world, somebody who was leading a press conference and is in a leadership role in the United States government would have said, hey, what's going on over there? And she kept talking. She did not stop. And just so everybody's clear, she knows who Alex Padilla is. He is the chair of the subcommittee, or the ranking member of the subcommittee on immigration in the United States Senate. That is the committee that deals with many of Kristi Noem's issues. She knows who he is. They've met before. when her team says he was engaging in political theater, I would argue they were engaging in political theater by pretending, oh my God, there's gambling going on here. They were, shocked that oh, who is that? They knew who he was. She didn't try to stop it. And even as he kept saying who he was, if you watch that video, it's brutal.
And if it can happen to a United States senator from California, Jim, looking at this as an attorney and that people have, First Amendment rights, but if they can do this to a senator, again, you have an increasing amount of law enforcement officials that honestly, I think have a personal fork in the road they've got to come to as far as whether they're there to uphold the law or if they are crossing the line into, territory that I didn't think we'd see in this country with hidden police and acting in extra legal means.
Pat, that's one of the principal things that comes to my mind whenever I see, again, the Padilla incident, but beyond that, so many other things where you've got these masked, apparently federal officers and others who are out there executing their orders, doing what they're being told. But I do wonder, again, having worked with law enforcement, state, local, and especially federal law enforcement for the better part of 30 years, these are people who've taken an oath to defend not a president, not a governor, no one particular person, but the Constitution and basic principles about how these things are to work. You have to wonder if an awful lot of them, and we'll get another big test of that this coming weekend, if in fact there is additional involvement of law enforcement stopping these protests, you have to wonder if they themselves, as they're going to work in the morning, engaging in these arrests, whether it's tackling Padilla or doing other things out there, if they are wondering inside their own cognitive analysis, what am I doing here? And it really is contrary to the basic concepts of law enforcement. Once again, to arrest somebody, to place them in custody, just a little bit of civics here again, you got a probable cause to believe that they're violating the law, that there has been some law that has been obstructed here. And again, free speech, as the judge in California just said a day or so ago, it's very strong. And all those things have got to be analysis going on inside the heads of all these law enforcement officers wondering what they're doing.
But yet some of those law enforcement officers, Mark, are targeting the journalists themselves. I mean, firing rubber bullets at reporters and camera crews, which I don't think is accidental. I think that there's a degree of state-sanctioned intimidation going on here.
Well, if you see that video of the Australian reporter and the people behind her, the law enforcement officials behind her, people behind her, that rubber bullet they shot at her. Clearly, there were no protesters in the area. She was doing a stand up, and they're behind her, and they fire at her, and it's just shocking. And I think that's one of the things I think most dangerous about Trump is that he has clearly made the news media the enemy, and he's made the facts the enemy. And so he's trying to get his people in law enforcement to see it the same way. And he doesn't want us to cover this kind of stuff. He wants the cruelty toward immigrants to happen without anyone paying any attention to it or cheering it on. He does not want the facts to be out there.
No, and again, that strongman thing is intentional to try to win some kind of a PR war, if you will. Jennifer, it is very easy. We've talked about AI images, social media algorithms. How did one reporter call it? Catnip for right-wing agitators. All the misinformation that's out there. Should we wring our hands about it here, or can we talk about whether there's any way around it?
I think one of many things we've learned through the Trump years is that all of us, particularly media, but everybody, need to be really careful about what images we collect and we share. And I would say with news media, again, I watched Fox, it almost killed me. And they're so selective about the pieces of video, images from LA that they take to feed their version of things. So there's a scene, if something's on fire, it doesn't matter if that one little thing is on fire over here and nothing else is happening anywhere near it, which is the case in LA. I've seen the map of where the protests are. It's like a teeny little couple blocks, and LA is huge. LA is not on fire, but Fox takes that one little clip of video of something burning, like the Waymo cars, and gives you the impression, the way they treat it and how frequently they share it, that the whole city's on fire. Media collecting those images, I mean, we can't do anything about Fox. They are state media. But everybody else really needs to kind of take a beat on it. It might look really cool on television to have a little clip of fire, but if you're going to use that, you need to tell people the context and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it.
Right. Another headline in Press Watchers says, how many people were arrested is a lousy way to cover protests. That is not the barometer you should be using. And Jennifer, you point to two different headlines. One says, U.S. Marines deployed to Los Angeles to help quell anti-ICE riots, whereas the other headline says, L.A. protests. Trump sends thousands more troops in authoritarian move. Same thing, two different ways of looking at it. Folks
reporting on exactly the same story.
Right. Yep. From an accountability standpoint, Jim, when we talk about the law enforcement officers, and I don't want to overreact here, but I also don't want to downplay this, that at some point this is all going to pass. To what degree should some of these law enforcement officers understand that there may, I would hope will, be accountability for abuses once this is all over and other people are in charge?
The United States Supreme Court has said just that, Pat. We know that there is constitutional exposure if, in fact, even under assignments, even under direction, you as a law enforcement officer, and that applies very, very broadly, you do something that violates someone else's constitutional rights. You bust down a door without a warrant, without consent. You arrest somebody without probable cause. You engage in a search of an automobile, again, without probable cause to believe that there is something in that automobile. It leads to a scintilla of evidence of a crime. You do those things, you're violating the Constitution, and you've also identified what is in the law regarded as victims of your conduct. It's called Bivens actions. It's after a Supreme Court case that says you can, in fact, file a lawsuit. Frankly, on behalf of the government, I was involved in a lot of those lawsuits, wrestling with what the parameters of that are. And there is that exposure. And frankly, it can't even be monetary exposure. You can plainly get damages against the government for doing these kinds of things. And again, you look back at this Bivens case in particular, as I often do, commend reading it because it talks about the fundamental right of law enforcement, yes, to do what it is doing to ensure safety and security, but also the right of the people not to have their basic fundamental rights of theirs trampled on by government.
For some of you, a local update is next. For others, we'll continue the conversation here, including ABC firing somebody. The headline from a Mark Jacob video, when telling the truth is a fireable offense. You can catch Jim Santel on Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings at 9, Mark Jacob's newsletter at stopthepresses.news, and Jennifer Schulze's Indistinct Chatter on Substack. Search for News Jennifer. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All right. Any of you have to depart?
No, I can stay.
I can stay.
We'll start with Terry Moran then.
Great.
And let's see.
It's kind of a tough issue a little bit. I mean, it's, if I was his boss, I wouldn't have loved it, but
yeah,
at the same time.
Were you the one, or did somebody else put up that based on the reading of ABC's policy, Walter Cronkite would have been fired?
Yeah, no, I did not put that up, but that's true. Both him and Edward R. Murrow would have been fired, really, when you think about it. They both reached a conclusion based on the long-time reporting that was just demonstrably true.
Yeah. Did any of you watch the play on Saturday with George Clooney? Good night and good luck.
Yes.
I wanted to.
It was so good. Did you see the movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was, I did not realize it was 20 years ago now.
Oh.
Wow.
And that's why I didn't think at first I didn't think the play would work, because I always think of the movie and Clooney played Fred Friendly in that one. And but now 20 years later, I'm like, could I see him in a different role? Yeah, I could. I still think the actor that played Murrow in the movie, whose name escapes me now, David Strathern or something like that. I like him, and he was so good as Murrow in that movie.
I had a nephew who was in New York, and of course he tells me all the time about all the shows he goes to see. I don't know how he does it on his salary, but said it's one thing to see it obviously on your TV screen. He says it's just so compelling. Of course, it's true of all theater, but that in particular, he said goosebumps and hair on the back of your neck standing up. And too bad it closed on the same night of the Tony Awards. So that's gone. Othello's gone. All those kinds of things. So
yeah. Okay. Like I said, yeah, it was we need more storytelling like that. So, and it was nice. The play was bookended with him giving that famous lights and wires in a box speech, and at the beginning and at the end of the play, and they played this montage of clips over 60 years that helped underscore some of his points. And I mean, it was emotional listening to that. And I've read that speech 100 times. I mean, it's part for all of us. It's part of our professional DNA,
And it was current too. Again, I think one of those images was, of course, Elon Musk and the salute, right?
And the Nazi salute,
this is not going back and just keeping something in place for months and months. I suspect if they had gone on, they would have probably taken a clip from the Los Angeles, whatever that is, not rebellion, but so it really current. Yeah.
All right, we will be back in 35 seconds. I'm going to leave your mics up here. So. All right, 10 seconds. One more time, the keyword in the Scotty Summer Text to Win contest is water, W-A-T-E-R. You've got 7 minutes or less to text that to us through the Civic Media app for a pair of Brewers tickets and to be eligible for the grand prizes that will be given away as well. Up North News is now a 7 newsletter a week place for information Monday through Friday, then a sports newsletter on Saturdays, and my Sunday mornings with Pat Kreitlow politics newsletter on Sunday mornings. Sign up for it at upnorthnews.wi.com. It will no doubt include some of my conversation with Supreme Court candidate Chris Taylor. She is coming up right after the 8 o'clock news, right after we conclude things with our panel here, Mark Jacob, Jennifer Schulze, and Jim Santel. Mark, I was mentioning before the break here that you and Stephen Betchloss have the On Target video series, and the headline here is "When Telling the Truth is a Fireable Offense." Can you give, for folks that didn't follow this, a little bit of background on what Terry Moran of ABC wrote, or said that led to him no longer being with the network?
Yeah, Terry Moran, longtime veteran of ABC News, posted on social media last week, I believe, or over the weekend, that that Donald Trump and especially Stephen Miller were world-class haters, and explained that that they had hate in their hearts, and especially he was focusing on Miller, who obviously is has these white supremacist feelings and is turning it into policy. So I mean, it was a little unusual thing for a correspondent to post. I could see why, if I were his boss, I would have been a little alarmed. I'll say that. But at the same time, it was true. I mean, the thing about it was true. I mean, Stephen Miller pushes this kind of great replacement theory that brown people are coming into the country to steal the culture from white people and stuff like that. I mean, he is a hater. And so it was one of those things where, I mean, how much should he have been punished for telling the truth? And is it okay to tell the truth in today's world in journalism? And my feeling about that is that I feel like that, I don't know Terry Moran, but I feel like he must have been, I think he felt really bad about having to mute the truths for so long and put things and frame things so much in careful tones when what's happening in front of us is a racist, sexist attempt at dictatorship. I mean, that's really, Pat, that's what's going on right now. And for you to be in the news media and try to, kind of soft pedal that must drive people crazy.
Jennifer, what was your own reaction to, what he said and how ABC handled it?
Well, I think it's bigger than just that post of Terry Moran's. Recall that Terry Moran a few weeks ago did that interview with Donald Trump that got quite a bit of publicity because Moran pushed back on the idea, the actual photo that Trump had posted showing Kilmar Obrego Garcia Photoshop with what Trump said were MS-13 numbers on his hand, but it was Photoshop. The President of the United States, let's remember, everybody, posted a Photoshop photo lying about someone that they mistakenly took out of the country and put in a nasty prison in El Salvador. And Moran did this interview with Trump where he pushed him on it. And since then, Trump and his supporters, particularly in right-wing media, have been attacking Moran quite aggressively and demanding he be fired. So I think it's a culmination of all of that. I too, like Mark, if I was his boss, I'd be like, oh my God, I don't need this. And I would have probably said, I would not have fired him, but I don't know what else has been going on there. I do think it's more than coincidence that his contract was up that same day or a day later, which also doesn't make sense because those contracts are negotiated months in advance.
Right.
So something is still a little fishy about it, but I think bottom line, Disney got weak knees.
You think he was on the way out anyway, and this was just his party shot?
I think the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think that Donald Trump is, putting a lot of pressure on these big companies, and I think it worked in this case.
Yeah, these countries are capitulating, or these companies are capitulating,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with you. I feel like we don't know everything there yet, and if I were his boss, I'd be like, okay, you don't need to apologize to them, but you should make some kind of a statement about, what's the word they like to use? I was inelegant with my choice of words, or something like that. To say, look, I'm a journalist. I should do better than that. Jim, quickly to you from the text line, from somebody wanted to know if there was any update in the arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan in that case. Anything new to report on that this week?
Nothing breaking in the sense of everyday breaking, but this is that period of time when the judge in the federal court there, the magistrate judge now, ultimately Judge Edelman, reviewing the motions to dismiss. And as we talked before, this is premised in part upon the 10th Amendment, judicial immunity. They are fascinating concepts. Ultimately, Judge Edelman will have to decide them. It's going to be quiet for a while. There could be an evidentiary hearing, but unlikely we're going to hear anything anytime soon. The trial date set for July, almost certainly not going to stick just because you've got all these other things pending. But it may well be that sometime later this summer, we'll get an initial recommendation from a magistrate judge about how to resolve those motions. Goes up to the judge. He'll do that. And maybe sometime in the fall, there could be a follow-up hearing of some kind that will warrant some attention, but pretty quiet right now, I suspect. And for most of the summer, not to say that there's not a lot of litigating going on. Lawyers do a lot of things in writing, a lot of filings with the clerk of court.
All right. Jim Santel's Amicus, a law review, can be heard Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock on Civic Media, playback on Sunday mornings. Mark Jacob has the Stop the Presses newsletter, stopthepresses.news. Jennifer Schulze's Indistinct Chatter is on Substack. @NewsJennifer is the handle you want to look for. Jennifer, Jim, Mark, thank you as always. Have a
Happy
very
weekend.
nice
Always a
weekend,
pleasure.
everybody. All right. Good to see you all. Appeals Court Judge Chris Taylor is standing by and is going to join us to talk about her announced campaign for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court in April of next year, quite possibly up against incumbent conservative Justice Rebecca Bradley. That's coming up here on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right. Thanks again, Jim.
Take care. We'll
All
see you
right.
next week.
Yep. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, I'm great.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a little while here. So
I know.
okay, let me first get the Chiron right here. Judge Chris Taylor, and then is it appeals court judge, Supreme
Right.
Court candidate? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on the Court of Appeals,
Okay.
the intermediate appellate court between the trial courts and the Supreme Court.
All right. Let's see if that fits there. Yep, that fits just fine. All right, you sound good. Your camera's great. So I'll go ahead and stick you back in the waiting room.
Great.
We come back at 8:06. We do a live weather report, so we'll probably jump back on around 8:08, 8:09, and then we'll and Dr. Kristin Lyerly will be joining us along the way as well. And she says she's a fan. Can't wait to converse with you too.
Oh, great.
All right. Sounds great. All right, thanks. Wait a minute. Do I hear Sam? Is that you in the background there?
I am here. Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to let you know I see you there. I'm going to tuck you back in the waiting room so you can still hear everything.
Great.
And Chris, I'll put you back in the waiting room too, and I'll see you in a bit. Actually, I'll bring you up long enough to say hi to Dr. Lyerly now that she's here. Good morning, Kristin.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Where are you now? You're still up north, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Hibbing.
Okay, I thought so. Is that the bike behind you there?
Bike.
Okay.
Yoga mat.
How many miles we going tomorrow?
I don't know. It's going to be rainy and cold.
Oh, okay. All right. It's okay. How's the week been?
Not too bad.
Okay. All right.
Delivered a baby. Took
Sounds
care of
good.
some other ladies.
Okay. Chris, are you good staying until 8:29, or do you need to bail at our 8:20 commercial break?
No, I can stay.
Okay. So we'll have a commercial break, a 2.5-minute break at 8:20, and then we'll all wrap up at 8:29 here. So, or I'm sorry, 8:30, right on the dot is when the commercial break happens now. All right. I'll see you all in a bit.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Good morning. Welcome back. It is 8:06 now on this Friday the 13th of June, 2025. Appeals Court Judge Chris Taylor is standing by. We'll talk about her campaign for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court coming up in just a bit. Dr. Kristin Lyerly will be along for that as well. Mike Clemens will give us an update on all kinds of sports heading into the weekend. But let's get all of it started first with an updated forecast from meteorologist Brittany Merlot and that river o' rain that is just going to keep pouring over us throughout the course of the, foreseeable future, I guess, Brittany.
Yeah, it sure will, unfortunately. At least the next 24 hours, probably through a good chunk of this weekend, especially up north, Northwoods. We're getting hit right now from Eau Claire to Wausau to Rhinelander. A lot of the places seeing anywhere from a half an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall already. We've got another inch or two left to go. So we are in a marginal risk for excessive rainfall, which of course could create some flooding as we go into the weekend. It is cloudy for much of the state up north. Some spots of sunshine still hanging on far southwest. And we are going to be looking at that rain just soaking north of I-29 throughout most of the day into tomorrow. It starts to wind down a little bit on Sunday, but we do have another round that wants to push through once again late at night. Some showers and thunderstorms. But in terms of temperatures today, we'll hit the mid-50s far north, mid-70s far south. Tomorrow, as that spotty rain lingers, especially far northeast, we are looking at highs in the 60s there. 80 degrees far south, and then Sunday a lot of the state stays dry until late at night. We're looking at 70s out there. So a decent weekend, but a lot of rain splashed in there, unfortunately.
Yeah, so get the mower out next week. Be prepared.
Yeah.
You might have 2-a-days coming up the way things are going to grow there. On Facebook from Greg and Waukesha, good morning to Parker. Parker, because I am totally blind, what color shirt are you wearing today? This, of course, would have something to do with his very pink shirt yesterday. Is that a Madison Mallards shirt by chance?
This is a Madison Mallards shirt. So this is like a hunter green shirt for you there, Greg.
All right.
And the logo is an alternate identity of the Muskelards. It is a muskie combined with a mallard. And
I was wondering what that was.
yeah, and there are different versions of it for like different players. And I, of course, went with the bench warmer. Who's kicking his feet up, having some bubble gum.
Well, it's no hodag, but it'll do. It'll get the job done. All right.
That's hysterical.
Now we know. Thank you, Brittany. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. It is 8:09 right now. And let's see. I had one note on the text line from our last segment. We were talking about ABC's Terry Moran and parting ways after a Trump remark from Steve in Milwaukee. Thank you, Pat, for talking about the Terry Moran story. Too much pressure is being put on these news outlets by the orange. No, I shouldn't say that word on the radio. We already have too much sane washing as it is. So thank you, Steve, for the comment on there. Dr. Kristin Lyerly joins us just ahead of Judge Chris Taylor. How are you today, Dr. Lyerly?
Living the dream.
getting set for the Dr. Kristin Lyerly show on tomorrow.
Yes, I talked with Pete Schwaba. I thought maybe we needed a little oasis of entertainment in the midst of all of the craziness. So Pete and I just chat about entertainment and his career and how a kid from Marinette, Wisconsin could make it in the big time and keep doing it, keep uplifting people with entertainment and music and love.
That's great. And then you, of course, like my wife, are OBGYNs, and so you both get daily newsletters from the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
This was a shocker, Pat.
Thank you for sharing the headline in today's daily newsletter. You want to read that headline to us, please?
Yes. New mothers experience significant loss of uninterrupted sleep through week 13 postpartum, study finds.
Study finds. That's the latest from the medical journal. Stay tuned for their sunrises in the east. But yeah, I suppose that checks out. Let's bring in Judge Chris Taylor herself. Can also testify to the lack of sleep that comes with parenthood. Chris,
Yes.
Judge Taylor, good morning.
Good morning. I would say it extends to year 18, maybe.
Amen, sister. Yes.
Oh, yes. Says Dr. Lyerly with her 4 boys. Rob from Tigerton putting on YouTube. Kristin has a really great radio show. Well, we know that.
Thanks, Rob.
That's why we gave her one here. And I asked Kristin if she wouldn't mind sharing her block with Judge Taylor, and you were quick to say yes because of the importance of this Supreme Court race next year and the thing that ties you both, and that is that support for women's health care rights.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
we
Kristin?
go way back. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Judge, let's start there. Judge Chris Taylor served in the Assembly. I was serving in the state Senate. She's had a lot of work before and since then. She's also got a dog, unless Kristin's got one in the hotel over there.
That's a Ollie. Yes.
I quickly add, we are extremely pet friendly on that. We encourage pets during interviews. So with that, Judge Taylor, let's turn it over to you to talk just very briefly about why you made the decision. You could have stayed cozy there on that state court of appeals. Why run for a spot on the state Supreme Court next year?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do, talk to you all and hear from people all over our state. But I am running, look, I've had a 30-year legal career as a private practitioner. I was the law and policy director for Planned Parenthood, went on to the state legislature. Now I've been a judge for the last 5 years. And my passion, my commitment throughout my career has been to protecting people's constitutional rights and making sure that they have access to justice. Courts have to be a place where Wisconsinites can count on their rights and freedoms being protected, being respected, and that has been my commitment throughout my entire career. It's critical that courts remain fair and independent, and the independence of the judiciary, I think, has really come into play as we've seen attacks on judges. And so that's why I'm running, and I'm running against somebody who really has spent her time and her legal career not protecting rights, but taking rights away. And I think that is the antithesis of what courts do. This is Justice Rebecca Bradley, who I'm running against. She's really spent her career and certainly her time on the Wisconsin Supreme Court pursuing a very extreme right-wing agenda to hear cases that could gut our election. She's voted to hear the Trump lawsuit back to overturn the 2020 election. Certainly is very hostile to respecting women's constitutional rights and their rights to make their own personal private healthcare decisions, and also has been very much antagonistic towards fair maps and letting voters pick their elected representatives instead of the other way around.
I would again add that I've said many a time that it feels like her entire career, not just since her first appointment to the bench by Scott Walker, but dating well back before then, has felt like an ongoing audition, for a show on Fox News or one of these other places. Her record is extremely well documented. So is yours, the work that you've done. And what I'm already noticing in this race, just like the last couple of races, is that yeah, you have a record of employment or other actions that you've done, but it is, talk about the importance of being upfront with your values as much as it is about your particular experience.
Well, look, voters are placing an extraordinary amount of trust in the people that they elect to our highest court, which is just going to become more and more important as I think we see things unfold at the federal level. But my values, are upfront and on display. And my passion, my values are about making sure the people of the state of Wisconsin are treated fairly and with respect and have access to the judiciary, that their rights are respected, not taken away, and that they have a chance to get fairness in an impartial, independent way. My values are reflected in the things that I worked on when I was in the legislature, from protecting access to abortion and reproductive health care to making sure our water was safe, addressing lead poisoning in children, which we had a real problem with when I was in the legislature and persists to this day, and also making sure that workers are treated fairly and get an actual slice of the pie that they make and not just crumbs. So those are my values. I think they're reflective of Wisconsin values. And I am very proud of the things I've worked on. I'm not shying away from them. Of course, as a judge, I'm not a policymaker. I interpret the law, I apply the law, but my eye is always towards justice. That is the point of having a judiciary.
You're not a policymaker now, but you have been in the past. And that, I think, separates you from the last two Supreme Court now justices, Janet Protasewicz and Susan Crawford, who don't have a history of having participated in the legislature. How will that affect your campaign and the way that you rule from the bench?
Well, look, I think that being a legislator makes me a better judge, and it has made me a better judge. And one reason why is because I saw so directly as a legislator how the law impacts people's lives. I had constituents coming to my office talking to me on a daily basis about laws they wanted to see, things they needed. I had victims of sexual assault come to me and tell me, I need to be able to protect my address from my abuser. So I worked on a bipartisan bill called the Safe at Home Bill, which allowed victims of domestic violence and sexual assault to not disclose their addresses so their abusers couldn't find them. So I understand, in my experience being a legislator, really underscored the law is about people. People have to be the center of what we do in the judiciary. It's not about making sure the big money special interests have their way, which is what we saw the attempt of a billionaire to buy the last Supreme Court seat. It's not about that. This is about ordinary, everyday Wisconsinites making sure our courts are there to protect them, to listen to them, and to give justice to them. So being a legislator has made me a better judge, no doubt about that.
I've got under a minute here to before the break here. So let me ask just the very brief biographical info that people might want to know about you, your family, your education, any background like that.
Sure. Well, I've lived in Wisconsin my entire adult life. My family has very strong roots to Wisconsin going back to the 1850s. But I came back to Wisconsin for law school almost 35 years ago, and have really been influenced in my life by my grandmother, who was left to really support 3 kids on her own, had to go back to work, couldn't survive until she got a union job and made a fair wage, and sent my mom and her two brothers to college, and they all became teachers. So I've been very much impacted. She also was a woman of deep faith, and she taught me that your life is about doing good for people. That's why you're put on this earth. And she exemplified that. Every Sunday after church, she would go visit her friends who were in nursing homes, knitting blankets for the hospital, sometimes, dragging my sister and I with her. We weren't as enthusiastic about that. But those values have just, they just center me. It's who I am.
Judge Chris Taylor is a candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court that we're visiting here on these mornings, powered by Up North News. A local update is next for some of you. Others will stick around here, and then after the break, and in about 15 minutes, Mike Clemens will be along with a weekend sports preview from the heart of America's Up North, live from Lake Wissota. Thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. There we go. We're in break now for 2.5 minutes. Folks on Facebook and YouTube can still see us and hear us, but the radio folks are in a commercial break right here. So then we'll come back and we'll go until 8:30. So, all right. Are you it being this early in the campaign? I'm guessing it's much more phone work than road work at this point.
Yes, that's an understatement.
Yes.
But I'm getting out now.
Good.
I want to get to the people. Yes, I am making a lot of phone calls. But we are planning all of the fun events coming up, and, going to all the summer picnics. I just went to a dairy breakfast, and that's what I love about campaigning. Mm-hmm. I just love going out and meeting people and listening to them, hearing what's important to them. You learn so much when you
What a difference. Some people would be like, yeah, I had that part of my life where I knocked on doors and went to picnics, and I'm relieved not to do it anymore. And from other people, you kind of almost hear an itch, like, I get to get out of this courtroom. I get to talk to people again. You get out of the bubble.
Yeah, and it's super important for judges to get out into the community. And in my district at the Court of Appeals, we represent 24 counties. I was elected by 24 counties to get to the Court of Appeals. And we've gone out in those counties. The judges, 5 judges, have gone out into many, many counties to just talk about what we do, to meet the attorneys, meet the judges. And we have got to do that. We have to be independent, but not isolated.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
all right. Kristin, I'm going to start out with talking about endorsements. And so I'll do one question and then back to you for another one.
Sounds good.
All right.
Can we talk about abortion?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Because we can't not.
Exactly. All right. We'll be back in 30 seconds. I'll tuck you back in the waiting room for a few seconds just so you can slurp some coffee or whatever. Be right back. We got baseball tonight. Brewers, St. Louis Cardinals. Coverage starts at 6:35 on several Civic Media stations. Head over to the website, civicmedia.us, to learn more. And remember, you can always get our daily newsletter here at Up North News, a separate entity from Civic Media. Head to upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe up at the top there and be a subscriber to one or two or all 3 of our newsletters. The weekday one, Saturday sports, Sunday politics, the one that I write and put together. We'd love to have you as a subscriber and as a regular reader to the newsletter, on the website, and on social media as well. Let's continue our conversation now with State Supreme Court candidate, Appeals Court Judge Chris Taylor. Dr. Kristin Lyerly is here with us as well. And let me start first by saying that this election, April of next year, would have a primary in February of next year if there are more than 2 candidates for the race. Now, assuming Justice Rebecca Bradley wants to run for another 10-year term, if somebody else gets in the race, as well as Judge Taylor here, there'd be a primary for the 3 or more candidates that get in. The top 2 vote getters would then move on to the April general election. I say all that by way of background because I don't know whether there will be other candidates given the endorsements, Judge Taylor, that you have collected already, starting with a few people with the word justice before their name.
Well, I'm really honored to have the endorsement of Justices Dalit, Karofsky, Protasewicz, and Justice-elect Susan Crawford. It shows that they have confidence that I'm going to be the kind of justice that the people in Wisconsin really deserve and put them and their rights first and foremost, and also protecting our democracy first and foremost, and the independence of the judiciary. So I have known each of those justices in different capacities. They know how hard I work. They know how much I care about people. They know my commitment to justice. In fact, Justice-elect Crawford and I were next door neighbors when I was on the circuit court. So we worked together a lot, and she was one of the people who I would go and chat with about different legal issues, and we would collaborate a lot. And that's one thing I just love about the appellate court is you get to collaborate, you're writing decisions together. And you get to hear what other people think, what other justices are thinking about an issue. So you get a better product when you do that, but you have to be willing to collaborate. And I think that's another area where I'm so different than Justice Rebecca Bradley, who does not seem interested in collaborating with people who do not think exactly like she does, as she indicated the night of Justice-elect Crawford's election.
Let's talk about abortion. Because you have a strong relationship in the past with Planned Parenthood, of course. You served on the assembly. This is an issue that is very important to you. in past Supreme Court races, it has been a firebrand issue. It's been something that the other side has used to against, in many ways, against the candidates, especially Protasewicz and Crawford. How will that play out in your campaign, given that you have been so forward with this issue throughout your career?
It's, this is one of my values. I value women and individuals' ability to make their own personal, private healthcare decisions. I have gone through 2 pregnancies. I have birthed 2 children. And what I've been through and my experiences in the medical care that I needed, both to get pregnant, to stay pregnant, and then to have healthy pregnancies and birth, is really nobody's business, quite frankly. It is my relationship with my doctor that's important. It's being able to access the health care that I needed to, and I had a very high risk pregnancy, one of my last pregnancy with my younger son. So it is just no one's business. It is my, the decisions that I make with my husband, with my family, with my doctor. How can, it's just kind of mind-boggling to me that we think politicians are better positioned to make these decisions. So that is my value, though I value those things. And those are the values that I bring to this race.
And let's not sugarcoat this. Rebecca Bradley is a tenacious campaigner. She's going to have the entire Republican apparatus behind her. So, I mean, your record as a legislator on things like voter ID and Act 10 and all of that are going to be essentially fair game, but so is everything that she has ever written about. And as we've noted, she's done a lot of writing of opinions. And so how am I trying to say this? I'm trying to say it's probably going to be a fair fight. If the election turns out this way, of 2 people who are capable communicators, capable of conveying values. And so where do you get the edge, Judge Taylor, in talking to that moderate voter, that swing voter, however you want to put it?
Well, look, I think most Wisconsinites don't want a politician in their healthcare examination rooms. So I don't think that I think my values are reflective. When Rebecca Bradley was writing about opposing abortion, that abortion should be illegal, I was out in college volunteering for Planned Parenthood to try to keep that clinic open in my college town so women could access health care. When she was writing that pharmacists should be able to refuse birth control prescriptions, I was working at Planned Parenthood on a bill called the Prescription Protection Act to make sure no woman was left at the pharmacy counter without having her birth control prescription filled. So this is a stark contrast between us. But I think my values are more reflective of the vast majority of Wisconsinites. I don't think Wisconsinites want the politicians to be making these decisions for them. It impacts every aspect of a woman's life when these decisions are taken away.
For more information, you can head over to Chris for Justice, CHRIS, chrisforjustice.com. Chris Taylor, Judge Chris Taylor, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Kristin Lyerly, thank you for joining us for the segment. Appreciate seeing both of you.
It's always a blast. Great to see you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge. And Kristin, we'll see you Monday morning, I believe. All right. Have a wonderful weekend. Mike Clemens coming up next to tell us about sports right after this. You're Up North. There we go. Now we're in break. All right.
It feels so good.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. I hope I can come back.
Oh, you absolutely can. Just let us know what you're doing. If there's something new that you want to share, we'd love to have you.
Excellent. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you. Bye, Chris. Bye, Kristin.
Yes? I want to stand for sports.
Do you want to stay for sports?
Can I?
Of course you can. Yes, absolutely. What?
Should I be worried?
Should I be worried?
That was very menacing.
It was a maniacal laugh,
I like sports.
Okay. All right. sounds good. Let's see, Mikey.
I got nothing else to do. I'm bored.
Okay.
I'm sitting in a hotel room. It's ugly outside.
No, that's wonderful.
I just need friends right now.
I thought this was the fishing segment. I thought I was supposed to do fishing stories.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Oh,
little love from Green Bay for you.
That's right.
Oh, good. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, where do you want to fit in the Stanley Cup game from last night? Did you see it?
No.
Okay. I may just casually mention it offhand because it was a nice overtime win, and then we'll jump into yours. So that way you don't have to cover it yourself.
I mean,
right?
I got like Sports Center on here, and I'm actually seeing some video of it. But yeah, I just I cover 4 teams.
I know. Yeah.
Really.
You're not
and
bored.
Occasionally, I keep an eye on the Indy 500 or the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that. My fun fact of the year, great story out of the Courier-Journal out of Louisville, that in this year's Derby, every horse that ran was a descendant of Secretariat.
I heard that. Yeah. Yes. And it made me want to go back.
Amazing.
Yes, it made me want to go back and look at. And I've looked once or twice on YouTube, Secretariat in the Belmont Stakes. That run is indescribable.
Dominic Yates, who's been added to the Journal Sentinel staff out of Milwaukee, interned at that Courier paper, so he got to cover 6 or 7 derbies in his time working for them, and he said, they do that thing every year where they take any name the past winners of the Derby the last 2 or 3 years, where they superimpose, Secretariat, the video with, the current winner.
Oh.
And he said Secretariat's it just is killing every one of these horses.
I know.
Out in front, and I'm not a horse expert by any means, but there was something the way that horse was built that you could identify him in a lineup. So, that's Secretariat. Just the way that horse was built. He was just magnificent. And that was a pretty good movie that came out about him too. Feature film about 10, 12 years ago. Pretty accurate in the story.
I don't think I saw the film, but I did read the book, and it was so good.
Of course you did. Pat's and I read the book kind of guy.
Yes.
And Mike, you and I saw the movie kind of people.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got 90 seconds coming back, so I'll pop you both in a waiting room, and I'll be right back. Here we go. Mike Clemens is standing by. All kinds of Wisconsin sports to get to in just a second, but first I have to subject Parker and Dr. Lyerly here to my love of playoff hockey. So there we are in the Stanley Cup Finals. It was Game 4, and Florida was up 3-0 in Florida after the first period, and of course Pat went to bed because Pat's got to get up early. So here's what happened since then. Edmonton came all the way back, tied it, then went ahead 4-3. Then with 20 seconds left, Florida ties the game 4-4. The crowd goes wild in Miami. We go off to overtime, Edmonton scores in overtime, wins the game 5-4. The series is tied 2 games apiece. Game 5 is tomorrow night in Edmonton. There will be a Game 6 Tuesday in Florida. If necessary, Game 7 will be next Friday in Edmonton. And Parker and Kristin don't look nearly as excited as I do in telling you about that.
I saw it. I stayed up for it.
I'm in the Hockey Central.
That's true. You are. You're up on the range.
I am.
So.
I can almost see the back of your hair growing as you're talking about this story.
I have good flow. I understand. All right. Having got that out of the way, let's get more Wisconsin-centric here and bring Mike Clemens into the mix. Mike, how are you?
Very good, Dr. Lyerly. I really enjoy. I've heard your show several times on the weekends. Great information, particularly changes that's going on with some of the federal cuts and all that, how that affects you physicians and all that's really good information. So how is everybody?
Well,
That's
Kristin's
very
a lot
kind of
better
you.
now.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Mike, the range of emotions. First, I'm watching Florida go down 3-0. I'm watching Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce cheering for Florida in the crowd, which was kind of depressing. And meanwhile, on my TV, or on my phone rather, I'm watching the baseball game. And I'm getting so excited about this new pitcher, Jacob Mizorowski, 23 years old. He's pitching up to 102 miles an hour. He's pitching no hits in the first, second, third, fourth. 5 innings of no-hit ball.
A no-hitter.
A no-hitter into the 6th inning, and he rolls his ankle, has some cramps, leaves, and it was all I could do not to cry. But you're here to tell us it doesn't seem to be serious.
You and Pat Murphy both, just like this girl. It's like, why can't we have nothing nice here? Yes, Jacob Mizorowski, 23 years old. He threw one 103 miles an hour, the fastest since they've been keeping that particular kind of stat the way they measure it. He had 14 pitches over 100 miles an hour last night, Pat.
That's
over
amazing.
14.
Amazing.
Mowing these guys down, comfortable, 6'7". He kind of looks like a giraffe out there in the mountain. And you're right. So they send him back out there in the 6th. He's got a no-hitter going. Family's up there in the stands. And the right foot comes forward and wobbles like, oh, what the hell was that? And he said, I cramps. He dehydrated, maybe nerves, who knows, in the calf and also in the quad. And, the trainer came running out there right away because that just didn't look right. And Murph said, sit him down. It's fine. Hey, we got 5 innings out of him. Way to go, kid. Go in there. And they went on to win 6-0 last night. Beat the Cardinals. Cardinals are in 2nd place behind the Cubs. Brewers in 3rd in their division right now. And, afterwards, a kid who's, is 23 going on 30, very, very mature, talked to reporters, said, yeah, it's just some cramps, should be okay. So they've got that. But again, can't have nothing nice because Aaron Savale, who had recently come back from injury, but they picked up, as a veteran for the rotation about a year ago, when Murph informs him, okay, hey, listen, we're going to move you to the bullpen now. He's like, no, you're not. No, I'm not a bullpen guy. Never have been, not going to be. Calls his agent, and then, he stand up. He talked to reporters before last night's game and said, I know this is going to look disingenuous or like I'm, an antagonist or something, but and my wife and I have enjoyed our year here in Milwaukee. I'm not a bullpen guy. I'm not going to the bullpen, and I've called my agent, and whether I'm a starter here or somewhere else, but we're asking for a trade. So they got that drama going on. In the meantime, the next game of this 4-game Cardinals Brewers series is tonight, 7:10 at AmFam Field.
That's right. 6:35 the pregame on several civic media stations. The NBA Finals continue in Indianapolis. How surprised are you that the Pacers are up 2-1 over Oklahoma City?
I don't know, because of the way they mowed down the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Knicks,
Yeah.
And the kid from Wisconsin, Tyrese Halliburton, out of Oshkosh North High School, led his high school team to the state championship in Wisconsin. I think it was back in 2018, and they won. Average numbers, like the other night, he had 22 points. I think it was 10 assists and 9 rebounds. He just turns it on in the last 5 minutes and just closes the deal on these games to take Indy, and taking advantage of playing in Indianapolis these games. They're going up 2-1 over the OKC Thunder. The Thunder, by the way, they've never won it. Did you realize it's already been since 2008 since the Supersonics moved to
I was going to say,
Oklahoma
I still think
City?
of them as Seattle's team, yeah. But it's been that long already.
I remember the Supersonics did win an NBA title in '79, and then a couple of years later, I got my start. As a matter of fact, a guy that went to my high school, Bill Hanslick, got into the NBA, and I got in the locker room to see him. And so they were a really good franchise back then. He played in the NBA for 15 years. But yeah, listen, the Pacers are playing through, and you know what? At the end of the day, Pat, when you're in these championships, it's coaching. It's Rick Carlisle. The way he's rotating these guys, it's coaching.
It is, and the kid Tyrese Halliburton, he sounded real humble in the clips I heard this week. He knows to step up in the moment. He gave great credit to his coach at Oshkosh North, and so this guy's been seen as kind of a villain for some. A lot of Bucks fans didn't like something about him, but I tell you, listening to him, you can understand why a lot of folks around Oshkosh are rooting for the Pacers.
Oh, yeah, and Indiana's just going nuts. I mean, if they could actually win their first NBA title like that, in the Hoosier State, crazy. So he's 25 years old, point guard, and he could be the next rock star of the NBA.
What did the Wisconsin Badgers allegedly do here for their first NCAA fine for recruiting violations in a long time?
Yeah, this broke yesterday afternoon. I think McIntosh, the athletic director, released this to certain sources. We're in this NIL era in college sports where there's like no rules. It's like the wild, wild west. They're making it up as they go. They're paying millions of dollars now to college athletes. Apparently, the NCAA has fined the Wisconsin Badgers football team. And, man, this is another strike against Luke Fickell for violating recruiting violations. This happened 2 years ago in 2023. Apparently what happened is that the Badgers football program started making their calls to prospective players before the start date. There's rules is when you start making those contacts to the high school kids. And they made over 100 calls. They were probably all logged, but later an investigation showed that. So the Badgers have been fined. I don't know if the figure's actually been disclosed. They're under some probation, and that since that rule has been changed, but whatever. Like I say, it's another strike during the Luke Fickell era.
Yeah, I mean, again, no pressure, but if the team underperforms this season, I know he got an extension and everything, but he's not winning any popularity contests yet here in Wisconsin.
No. In an ever more competitive Big Ten.
Yeah. Let's talk about Packers mini camp, including a very noteworthy departure.
Yeah, Jair Alexander. The Packers ended up releasing him. So the timeline to this thing was, and there's some people that are disputing, but The Athletic did some excellent reporting. Look, they got to the end of the season, and Brian Gutekunst sits down with Russ Ball, his director of finance, and they say, okay, look, this guy is supposed to be one of the highest paid corners, up to $17 million this year. He's missed, over half the games the last 2 years, 3 of the last 4. We're not paying that this year. We're not. So we're going to be telling them we want them to take a haircut, or we're going to move on. And Jair's agent said, no, you're not. We're under contract. We've got a great player here. You know that. And so it just sat there. It wasn't contentious. And Gutekunst came to us at practice on Tuesday morning after they'd released him and said, hey, guys, come on over here. Let's talk. So we went into a little garage and talked to him for about 6 or 7 minutes. And he said, yeah, it's not like it's been a day-to-day drama the last 3 months. We set our number, our walk-away number. They had their stance. And he said, you know what? We talked to Jair. I met with Jair in person on Sunday when he came into camp and reported. So, it's like the two sides are talking, but Jair's like, okay, fine, then release me. And he's confident his agent will find him another spot in the NFL and be able to get the money that he feels he deserves. And they turn the page and move on. So the other thing about, mini camp, and of course the Packers, packed a parachute for this when they picked up a veteran, Nate Hobbs, out of the Raiders. They got Keyshawn Nixon moving in the corner. They brought in McCole Hardman, who'd won 3 Super Bowl rings with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's going to be their kick and punt returner. At least that's what the feeling is right now. But, Wayne Larrivee, the voice of the Packers, was standing next to me in the sidelines the other day. He says, do you think number 6, Hardman can actually make the team as a receiver here? Because they're so deep at receiver now. And just as he said that, Jordan Love lines up 11 on 11, drops back to pass, and wings one 60 yards in the air bam, bingo, and he hits McCall Hardman, the former chief, in stride for like a 70-yard touchdown pass. And I said, I think so, Wayne. I think he's going to make the team. I think so.
Nice timing there. And then speaking of Jordan Love, let's talk about love and marriage. Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers' marriage, not to each other separately, but Jordan Love's got one coming up.
Yeah, all we know about Aaron is he's got a ring on his finger. I think somebody, in the paparazzis has tracked it down. But, Jordan during the Super Bowl, we saw him down in New Orleans during the Super Bowl. He's doing some appearances. And he said, Ronica and I, set a date. They got engaged last year in Italy. So I asked him, they brought him back in the other day. And so they said questions, and everyone's looking. And they said, Mike, you asked the first question. I said, when's the wedding? He laughed. He said, it's actually coming up. So we get done with these in a couple of weeks. And they're going to have the In-N-Out burger truck at his wedding. So he and Ronica are going to get it. The big story that I think that's so cool, right?
Yes.
The big story though that you're going to see from the Green Bay is the transition. Mark Murphy, after 17 years, is stepping down as Packers president and CEO, and I've been invited now. This is pretty cool to a meeting with Ed Policy next week. He's been here 12 years, but he's taken over this summer at the shareholders meeting on the 25th of July. So it's regime change, a new era on top. And you know what? So it reminded me, Pat. Remember when Bob Harlan said, I hate to do this, but we've got to move on. We've got to keep up with the other teams, and that he lobbied and got the atrium built, but they had to tear down that old office building that was the north end of Lambeau Field, the office where Lombardi was and where Holmgren was and all. And just before they tore it down, Mike Sherman, who'd become a Packer historian, head coach at the time, like this is around 2000, said, whoa, wait a minute. I want you guys to save this door. When you move the head coach's office now up to the atrium, I want the Lombardi office door in that office. So I thought that was such a cool move. And now that's already been 25 years ago. 2 years ago, a year ago, they built a whole new football operations thing where they got Gutekunst, LaFleur, all of his coaching staff, and the players' locker room over there. And they've got this locker room renovation going on. So there's more construction going on. And I said, I wonder when they moved the LaFleur office about a year ago, if they remember to save that door. And the facilities guy came over and told me, he says, yep, he's got the Lombardi door. I thought that was cool.
Okay, it's not in a dumpster someplace. Mike Clemens.
It's thrown out by remodeling guys, yeah.
No, and it's prone to happening. Mike Clemens, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you, Pat.
All right. Thank you, too. Hey, a local update is next for many of you. Others will stick around here with me and Kristin Lyerly for a final few minutes before we get the weekend started. Again, Monday, Jeff Mandel from Law Forward and author Laura Bird. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, there it is. Made it to break. Thank you, Mike. Outstanding lineup as always.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Oh, that's the board. That's right. Okay.
He's got stuff to do.
He's a busy guy.
Oh, I know. All right, Dom. Thank you very much.
Yep. See you guys.
All right.
Thanks,
See ya.
Dom.
Whew. Yeah. The thing is, he's got a clock. He knows right where that commercial break is. So I know Kristin wanted to get a question in, but I heard him and I'm like, nope, he's running the post.
I'll say something when we come back.
Yeah,
it's just a quip.
Okay, that's good. That you've already been invited to Jordan Love's wedding. I know. It's I'm sure you might even be one of the bridesmaids for all I know.
Yeah, picking out my dress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long has it been since you stood up in how many times have you been a bridesmaid?
Not very many. Maybe 3.
Okay. Well, that's not bad,
Yeah. I don't know. It's been 10 years. Actually, it's been 10 years because my friends who got married 10 years ago next summer are doing a 10-year reunion back in Mexico in July on the beach, which is a very hot time to be in Mexico in July.
Yeah.
You're going to tan, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Tony, she wasn't invited to the wedding. She's speaking at it. Yes. Yep. And yes, thank you for noticing the coffee mug, Tony. It is another Roy Kent Friday. So. then from here, right to the airport, and we'll see if they let me back in the country on Sunday.
Where are you going?
Going to visit some friends in Saskatchewan. I told you about that.
Oh, right. Where are you going to be in Saskatchewan?
If you'll recall, and I'm only going to share this with the online audience, not the radio audience, scouting out that potential new clinic location for an OBGYN and open up a clinic called Vaginas of Regina.
Listen, I have friends in North Battleford who are hiring.
Honey, they're hiring in North Battleford.
It's northern Saskatchewan, though.
It's in Kristin's ACOG territory.
Uh-huh.
So
also Manitoba.
Okay. Oh, Manitoba. See, no, Manitoba. I would definitely do that. Saskatchewan. That's a lot of flat out there, man.
It is, and northern Saskatchewan is different. But I mean, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg would work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got people. Talk to me. Sherry, call me.
First, let's see if they let us back in the country on Sunday. It's like, oh, you have that talk show. Why don't you come over and talk here in this little tiny office for a few minutes? You know?
We had an event with Wello in Green Bay where the speaker is a Canadian from Vancouver, and he did not come. He ended up doing it virtually because of concerns at the border.
I believe it. You know?
Yeah, and actually, all of our OBGYNs from Saskatchewan and Manitoba are not coming to the U.S. because of that.
Totally understandable. All right,
Yeah.
About 10 seconds. Next week on Tuesday, we'll have Hans Breitenmoser in, and I'm sure we will be asking about whether President Trump has flip-flopped on deportations or not after his tweet yesterday, seeming to indicate that he didn't mean for farmers to be hurt by all the roundup of the migrant workers.
That was such a weird message because
Yeah,
he
farmers
acknowledged
and
it.
hospitality. Right. He said something's going to change.
Well, but first he said, I'm hearing that people are hurting. And then he said, like, I know they're hurting, but he essentially said this still has to happen.
Yes. There was no clarity there, shall we say.
No, I guess we should be used to that by now.
Well,
Can I just make a comment about Mike Clemens?
Yes, by all means.
Mike Clemens sports reports. They bring the history. They bring the love. They bring the drama. It's so much more than scores.
Yeah. Tony on YouTube. Mike is great as always. You know?
Yeah. I was listening. I was like, I want to be part of that. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear more.
Yeah, like he's got a rundown. He's like, here's the things I got, and he's got a clock in front of him, and he'll just take that right to the post, and we are good to go. On Monday, I mentioned Jeff Mandel will be here from Law Forward to talk a bit more about billionaire bribery at election time, and author Laura Bird will be here talking about memoirs and the difference between memoirs versus an autobiography, which encompasses your whole life, whereas a memoir might just tell the story of a particular part of your life, and some memoirs that she would recommend putting on your reading list. Dr. Lyerly, have you ever given thought of writing a memoir?
That's the question I was going to ask you.
Well, I got there first. I'm the host, so you go.
I'm in the soup right now, Pat. I don't have time to think of retrospectively. I'm moving forward.
Okay.
So, no, not really.
Is it something you'd consider doing as a retirement thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe if I get to that point where I think my life was really all that interesting and people would like to hear it.
Oh,
or...
your life is all that interesting. Oh my, every time. Oh, I was, when I met this guy from the BBC who said, here, come shake hands with the Queen for a moment.
Can I tell you the weird thing that happened to me last week?
Of course you can.
I got invited to this meeting, a Zoom, with Senator Elizabeth Warren, and I'm thinking this is going to be one of those Zooms where there's like a lot of information and we're all blacked out, and Senator Warren pops in and she says, hi, thanks for showing up, and then they just give us a bunch of information. No, that's not what happened. Senator Warren shows up, says hi to the 20 of us who are on the meeting, and starts taking questions from us. I don't know how I got into this meeting, but I liked it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be fantastic. So
yeah, we talked about the big beautiful bill. We talked about how it is. It's so bad for rural. It's so bad for rural hospitals. It's so bad for folks who live in rural areas. And she said only 1 in 4 people. They have polling that shows only 1 in 4 people in this country really know what's going on with this bill, and really stressed the importance of having these conversations about I mean, we heard it from Judge Taylor. Your values, what's important to you? How can we stand up and fight for each other? It's not political. It's not what team you're on. It's about being able to pay your bills and get health care and have a house to live in and afford food.
It is. It's all about. It's about values. It's about the kitchen table, and it's about not division, which is all you really have from the right wing now, is dividing people in so many different ways. So you're going to be up north all weekend, so you won't be at the state Democratic convention.
No,
and I won't be there either. Yeah. And I also know a lot of folks are going to be at the state Democratic convention who wish they weren't, because of the bad timing. They'd all like to be at the No Kings rallies that are going to be happening all over the place.
Yes, I think they're doing some sort of No Kings thing at the convention.
Oh,
but
I'm sure they are. Yeah.
These rallies are everywhere. I'm going to be in Chisholm, Minnesota, home of Moonlight Graham from Field of Dreams. We're going to gather around the Iron Man, but there are going to be some other events up on the Iron Range here. And this is like far northern Minnesota. I mean, there aren't a lot of people here, but we're going to be out here standing up. I know in eastern Wisconsin, all across the lakeshore, from Sturgeon Bay, Algoma, Manitowoc, I think Kewaunee even, there are rallies all across the state, all across the country. This is about getting together with your neighbors, standing up, using your voices, being peaceful, and celebrating community.
You know, I'm visiting friends this weekend, and we might just have to go for a drive and see if there's a rally in Regina, Saskatchewan.
There sure could be.
There will be some outside the borders, believe me. But I will also be intrigued to hear from Dan Schaefer and others. We've certainly heard a lot of reaction to his column about whether Governor Evers should run for a third term or not, and what will be the result of the state chair's race. Because again, we got three candidates who are going to be running there. So it's funny because it's an off year, but we're not going to lack for discussion topics next week.
I know, bring the drama. And it's fun, and it's meaningful, and it's helping. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. That's why I'm not thinking memoirs right now, and I'm thinking action, because there's so much that needs to be done, and people want to be part of it. It's just a matter of figuring out where you fit in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's always kind of these down times that attract new people into politics. There are all kinds of people who joined because of the Iraq War back in 2004, 5, 6 area. People who got involved during the first Trump term, and now people who are getting involved in this day and age because, again, much like you once upon a time, they said, I can't just stay in my comfort zone. I have to put my voice out there. I have to put my values out there.
So are you working on your memoirs?
Perpetually. I mean, there's so much up here. There's so much, and
we're not just talking about his hair, friends.
No, but that's so many stories, and I always get the block of, am I writing a memoir or am I writing like a TV script? Am I writing like a WKRP type of thing with all my TV years, and then you put some of the political stories in there?
Mm-hmm. Nobody wants just a rundown, Nobody wants just a bulleted list. They want like the color.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Have a great time up there, and we'll see you Monday morning at 6:30.
Sounds good. Safe travels.
All right. Thank you so much. Parker, thank you. Have fun at the Mallards game. Stay dry.
I can only hope, Pat.
We can only hope for you as well. All right. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks to today's guests, Judge Chris Taylor, Kristin Lyerly, Jennifer Schulze, Mark Jacob, Jim Santel, Mike Clemens, and all of you for being here today as well. Up North News is the Wisconsin digital outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Have a great weekend. We'll see you here Monday morning up north.
That is some easy listening music.
I know. I've still got to play with it some more.
I am a really big fan of your theme music, actually. Yeah.
It needs some additions. It needs some tweaks.
Why don't we get a band to record some cool stuff? It could be like the Pat Kreitlow Show.
Some local band actually did a song.
Parker likes it,
and they called it Kreitlow.
I have. I do know guys like in a band that we could probably pull from that.
Do you really?
How fun would that be? Like to get a band together, a band that is together, and be like, your theme right now is this guy. and show them Pat.
Oh,
They
God,
just
no.
changed their logo to a cartoon of Pat's face.
I have a very cartoonish face. What can I say? So yeah, there is this Eau Claire area band called the Jaggernauts, and
I've heard of them.
yes,
That sounds sort of familiar.
yes, and well, what happened was somebody came up to me once. Oh, I should probably end the live stream for this and get out
No,
of trouble.
you might
Bye,
want to leave it
folks.
on.